You all know the story. A human from the regular, non-fictional world dies, almost always to a truck, and is brought in front of some omnipotent being. A Rob, if you will. Then, the Rob grants the human, now a soul, a few wishes. The same thing happened to me. Well, not exactly the same, there was no Rob for me. But it still happened. I died, because of an accident with, you guessed it, a truck. And not just any truck. An Indian truck, which had the words, Mumila Mera, on its windshield. Not the back, like any sane Indian truck would have, but on its windshield. What does it mean, you might ask? Basically, it says, suck my deck, in Hindi. So, yeah, I got killed by a truck, while being told to suck its deck, and the next thing I know, I'm laying in a crib bed, 2 years old again. No matter what anyone tells you, I did not scream in fright, no. I just was a little bit afraid. Just a bit. So, my screaming brought a woman running inside the room, who picked me up and started rocking me. I'm not going to lie, I was a child again, practically a baby, and had the hormones of said baby. So, I slept like a baby, after the woman rocked me. Last thing that I heard before I fell asleep, I just knew, they were going to bring my mood down, a lot. Shish. Sleep, my little Athena. Shish. Shish. But, I didn't register the words then, and quickly fell asleep to the gentle rocking of the woman. But, when I woke up, it all came back to me. I was in an accident, with a truck that told me to suck its deck. And then, I was a baby. I was reborn. Okay, I can accept that. I wanted to get reborn for a long time anyway. I did not think it'd actually be possible. Where was I? Ah, yes, I was reborn, and the shock of it made me scream for 5 seconds straight. I remember a woman coming in, picking me up, and rocking me to sleep. She must have thought I'd had a nightmare, how silly. But there was something else. She called me Athena, like the Greek goddess. Athena. Oh fuck, I was a goddamned girl now. Fuck. As soon as I thought that, I got a sudden sharp pain in my head, as I saw the memories of the girl, whose body I had taken over. It wasn't much, just usual normal life. There was a mother, which must be the woman from last night, but no father. No known siblings, and no known pets. As far as the girl, Athena, remembers, she and her mother lived completely alone, with no visitors, ever. Athena hadn't even left the house, not even once. Thankfully, Athena was just beginning to talk, so I did not have much in the way of filling a role. I just had to act dumber than my usual self, and not curse. Easy. Things could not just get worse. I'd thought to myself, furiously stabbing my spoon in the porridge I was having for breakfast. I could have never known that the worst was just beginning. The event, as I'm calling my rebirth, happened exactly 3 days ago, which gave me enough time to recognize a few things about this new world I was thrown into. My mother, and yes, she is my new mother, waving a wooden stick to stir the pot, while being 10 meters away from it was a hint thrown right in my face. And even if that wasn't, she smiled at me, seeing my wonder, and said, "You like this, little Athena? This is magic." As she whispered the word magic, she snapped her fingers, and somehow created a miniature fireworks show for me, right in front of my easily impressed eyes. Once I got over my awe, I realized that I was in some world, where magic was actually real, and where the fashion sense was old. You can see what realization I came upon. Harry Potter. I was in the world of Harry fricking Potter. And gods, was I happy. I was reborn, and not just that, I was reborn in the one world I knew a shitload about. This was the only good thing about being reborn, I soon realized. Why, you ask? Because of what happened next. As I was marveling over the magical fireworks, I heard a lot of screaming and yelling come from somewhere far away, which made me curious, but made my mother alert. Immediately, she stood up, and ran towards the window. Moving the curtain to the side, she looked out, and said, "Athena, come, I want to show you something." Curiosity taking over my 2-year-old mind, I walked towards Mother, whose name I still had no idea of. Taking my hand, Mother hugged me close towards herself. And I felt some sort of liquid fall over us. As I looked at me hands, seeing them disappear right in front of my eyes, I gasped out loud, and whispered, "Magic." Mother chuckled, and nodded at that. She then said, "Yes, magic. Now, I want you to do something for me, okay baby?" I nodded, and looked at the vaguely shaped face of my mother. She was invisible, you know, but not entirely. Oh, or maybe it's because we were both under the same spell that I could see her. I'll find out someday in the future. Mother patted my head, and said, "Where we're going now, there are bad men out there. They will want to hurt us if they know we're there. So we have to stay silent, okay honey?" I widened my eyes, while my mouth involuntarily gasped a bit, and I silently nodded. What the fuck was I supposed to say to that? Don't take me where someone can kill me. Like that would have been easy to explain, coming from a child of practically 2. And I couldn't even ask why she was taking me, a 2-year-old, to a place where someone wants to harm us. So, I sucked it up, believing in myself, and the fact that I can't die as soon as I was reborn in a whole new world. My favorite world at that. As I nodded, my mother hugged me closer, and then, I felt like puking. I've been swimming before, not that deep, but I know how it feels to have water apply pressure all around you. Multiple it by 1,000 times. And you get what I was feeling that time. When the books, and even some of the repetitive fanfics described operation as passing through a straw, I just rolled my eyes, because everyone says that as if they know what it feels like. But now, I can say, it feels worse. Mother had told me to stay silent, so I did not scream as we appeared somewhere else, for the first time in my small life. But I did have to swallow the bile down, by force, as Mother smiled sadly at my reaction. I was just squeezed through a temporary wormhole, forcefully that too, and ejected to another location. Traveling by spontaneous creation of breaches in space-time is not something to be taken lightly. As I tried bringing my breathing under control, Mother waved her hand, wand nowhere in sight, and sent me flying through the air, making my eyes widen, and caused me to almost start screaming. I still stayed silent, and had an internal panic attack, and being sent flying, as she placed me on a sturdy branch of a tree. She then waved her hand once again, and said, quite clearly, and loudly, "In fact, now, I want you to stay here, silently, Athena. I just have to do something for a minute, and then I'll come right to you." I've seen enough movies to know what was going to happen. She was not coming back. And my inner original Athena woke up, and began crying, yelling, "Mother number go." No, I can now tell that it was actually me crying, not wanting to lose a loving mother as soon as I'd got her, but alas, that wasn't in my hands. So, I saw Mother pull up the hood of her robe, which I didn't even notice she had on, and silently saw as she left towards the commotion. What was the commotion, you ask? Angry villagers. Literally. There was a mob, with villagers wearing old-time clothes, carrying flaming torches, pitchforks and a lot of other farming equipment that could double as weapons. I could see everything quite clearly from my spot on top of the tree branch, which was about a story high, with the tree itself being on top of a small patch of raised ground. So it was that I saw perfectly why the mob was so angry, and why my mother left me here. The mob was carrying a girl, barely 10 years old, probably less, who was unconscious. Her hands were bound by thick chains of what I thought was iron, and she herself was being carried upon a wooden pole, like those seen in the old movies. You know the ones, where they try and fry something over a fire. Yeah, I did not make the connection then. As the mob, while chanting something that sounded suspiciously similar to, "Burn the bitch," tied the girl up. I saw one of them throw a bucket full of water over her, which woke the girl up. She had immediately begun screaming, begging them for help, begging them to free her, but no one came forward to do it. Surprisingly, one man, at least in his 40s, came forward and slapped the girl hard. I'm an Indian, and we've seen a lot of violence against kids. Heck, I myself was beaten blue by my mother, when I was younger. But a stranger slapping a girl, while she was tied up over what looked like a pyre. That shit was nasty. He shouted, "Why should I help a witch?" at the girl, making her cry even more. The girl, who was pathetically begging for her life now, whispered something too softly for me to hear, but the man probably heard it, as he slapped her on her other cheek, and the mob cheered him on. Disgusting. Then, I heard the man question her quite clearly, as he shouted, "Are you a witch or not? Say it, heathen." Again, the girl whispered, while she began crying again, which the mob stayed silent on. It was only when the man took a burning torch from one of the people in the mob, that I realized what was happening. A witch burning. I had just witnessed a witch trial, where she was already guilty of witchcraft. The poor girl probably confessed, just to get it over with. As I was feeling helpless, not able to do anything, it happened. The man had just thrown torch towards the pyre. When it was thrown flying towards him, the fire covered him completely, and he was burned to ashes within a few seconds, barely giving him time to cry out in pain. But that wasn't all. One by one, the fire torches in the mob's hands began going out of their control, and started burning everyone there, causing mass panic. Most of the people threw down their torches, and ran for their lives, while a few burned down by their own flames, and took a few others with them. One brave soul, though, thought the crying girl to be the source of it all, so she picked up a discarded pitchfork, and ran towards the girl, probably hoping to kill the girl. Right as she was reaching the girl, the pitchfork bent in a weird angle, and stabbed the woman right in her eyes, definitely going into the brain. As the last person that dared to stay in the place died, the air around the girl shimmered, and a robed figure appeared in its place. My mother was alive, and so was the girl. And my mother is one badass witch. She killed the worst offenders in a few seconds. But, I still feel sad for the girl. They spoke for a half a minute, after which the girl became unconscious once again, and mother carried her towards me. Now free of bindings. As she was walking, everything finally registered to me. The pitchforks, witch burnings, and the fashion. I was definitely nowhere close to my own time. And yesterday, one day after we'd returned home, one unconscious guest with us, was when I finally realized just how far back I was. It was when I was play drawing in the kitchen, while mother read a tome. The tome was thick, and the words were definitely not in any language I knew. I know 3 languages, which isn't much, but it's definitely better than just one. As we were busy, and the girl from last night was still asleep, I saw something that made me freeze. There was a letter that mother just pulled out of her tome, which looked as if it was written just yesterday. And it probably was, which is what I was so frozen. The written words might go over my heads at this time, but the numbers are mostly similar to what I knew. And the date on the letter was most definitely the 12th of December 982. Not 1982, 982. Oh, fuck, I whispered, realizing my current timeline. Athena Rowena Ravenclaw, where did you hear that word? That is entirely inappropriate for you to use, mother said, firmly, and while pinching my cheeks enough that I began tearing up. As I began furiously crying, repeating, "No, no," again and again. I can't speak sentences yet. Remember, I finally registered what she just called me. Oh double fuck, Rowena Ravenclaw. Is my mother the Rowena Ravenclaw? The timeline matches perfectly for that to be possible. Well, at least I'll have a smart and strong mother. And get a chance to be smart and strong myself. Even if the world might look down on me for being a girl, I won't let it hold me down. I do have the advantage of magic on my side, you know. As mother sent me to my room, taking my wooden toys away as punishment for the bad word, I thought to myself, well, I'm in 982 AD, might as well have fun living in this time. Hela Odinsdottir, the firstborn of Odin, the king of Asgard, and the protector of 9 realms. Well, he's the protector now. Before, when Hela used to roam amongst the gods, freely, Odin was the ruler of the 9 realms. With Odin, atop his steed, Sleipnir, leading the Einherjar army, and Hela, with the mighty hammer, Mjolnir in her hands, atop her loyal wolf, Fenrir, being his executioner, and leading her own army of berserkers. A long time ago, one by one, the father-daughter pair traveled the 9 realms, making war, conquering the realms. That was 2,000 years ago, right about the time the mortals of Midgard were beginning with their worship. Asgardians were not, however, allowed to claim Midgard as their own, thanks to the other gods opposing them. And while Asgard could have taken one pantheon and come out on top, EY couldn't do that with literally hundreds of the pantheons that are spread all around Midgard. So, instead of conquering the realm of Midgard, Asgardians would conquer the people. Every few years, he Asgardians would travel through the Bifrost, to mingle amongst the mortals. They would drink, fight, and fuck to their heart's content. Many a gods even had children growing on Midgard, mortal children. Hela, being an Asgardian god, was no stranger to this. Even she had stepped down to Midgard, far too many times to count. One such outing had given way to her getting pregnant by a mortal, a never-before-seen occurrence. Many times have the gods made mortal females pregnant, but never before was a goddess made pregnant by a mortal's seed. Hela was disgusted by the mortal being in her womb. However, she did not want to kill the first child she ever had, despite not wanting to be a mother. A firstborn is special, supposed to be the strongest of her children. And this child might be immortal, but Hela wasn't going to kill her firstborn. So, she carried the child until the end of her pregnancy, and gave birth in secrecy. The child was born a daughter, with just a hint of divinity, making her a demigod child. However, demigods are still mortal, and so, Hela did not want to raise her, and even Odin did not want to see a mortal being in Asgard, let alone a mortal descendant of his. Once she was well enough, Hela ordered a servant of hers to take the child to Midgard, to ask the father to raise her in her stead, and even if the father refuses, to never bring the child to Asgard. The servant, Sana, agreed. She was the daughter of a general from the army of Alfheim, the land of the Light Elves. She was captured, and brought here to serve as a servant for the firstborn of Odin, as punishment for her parents defying them. Defying Asgard, Sana took the 2-month-old baby girl to Midgard. She found the father, and asked if he was going to raise her. The father refused to even look at the girl. Once he found out that she was a girl, he said, "I have no need for girls, let alone by that woman. I would have fucked my wife, if I wanted another daughter." Nodding in acceptance, Sana left the mortal's house, smiling at the 2 daughters of his that had seen their father condemn their half-sister. Sana left, and pondered. She could not abandon the child on Midgard, knowing that she will die within a few days. Nor could she take the child to Asgard, lest Hela or Odin kill both her and the child. So, Sana adopted the girl as her own. She named the child Lilith, and settled down on Midgard, to raise her. And promised to herself, even if the girl is mortal, I will protect her until she can protect herself, and only then will I leave. For 30 years, Sana stayed on Midgard, never going back to Asgard, nor Alfheim. And just raised her girl to the best of her abilities. Sana, being a light elf, had a very high talent for manipulating the magical energies. And although she wasn't a warrior, she did know how to defend herself, which does not help when the goddess of death attacks your home and captures you. She taught everything to her daughter. From swordsmanship, to writing, from flower arrangement, to poisoning. Every skill that Sana had mastered in the 3,000 years that she was alive, she taught to her young daughter. And Lilith absorbed every bit of information that was thrown at her. So, when Lilith became 25 years old, and wanted to travel the world, she left. With a rucksack full of every gift that Sana had ever given her, and Sana's own twin swords on her back, Lilith left. Never to be seen by Sana again. Lilith already knew about her long life, and the fact that she wasn't her born daughter, but both loved each other the same. She had gifted her swords to her daughter, in hopes that it will help the girl defend herself, if her magic fails to do so. And when Lilith met a man she liked, Sana left Midgard, and returned to Asgard. But, when she reached Asgard, she found the war over. Peace was welcome to the 9 realms, and Odin had suddenly gotten benevolent. But, Hela was gone, banished to Niflheim, and her servants were dead, killed for serving Hela. Her wolf was also dead, her berserker soldiers massacred by the Valkyrie. And now, only she remained, the lone servant of Hela, who was forced in that job. As soon as the soldiers saw her, they recognized her as the elf servant of Hela. Before the Einherjar could kill her, Sana left, once again back on Midgard, hidden from every magical sight that could find her. She knew that if she went back home, to Alfheim, to her parents, that war will follow her, and she would die just for being Hela's servant, just like the others did. So, Sana settled on Midgard, vowing to keep an eye on the descendants of Liluth. The descendants of Hela. Sana saw Liluth marry Lucas, the mortal sorcerer she came across. She saw Liluth give birth to 2 boys, and 1 girl, all from afar. She did leave a few gifts for Liluth, signing it as her name. To tell Liluth that she was there, watching over the family. She was there when Lucas died in a war, fighting for a king who did not care for them. She was there to heal Liluth's oldest son, when he succumbed to an illness which Liluth's magic could not heal. And she was there, when Lilith succumbed to her old age, and died. Year after year, she saw Liluth's descendants live, and die, her swords and her magical knowledge being passed down, generation after generation. And none of them were anything more than mortals. But all of them knew about Sana, calling her the guardian. They would pray to her, give her small offerings. And Sana would protect their houses in return, casting protections that took care of illnesses for them, and giving them some or magical knowledge that she discovered in those years. Sana would help them survive. She did not mind that they were mortals, as long as they didn't die young. If they died at old ages, she wouldn't mind, and even help ease the pain of her children. And that's what they were, the whole family. Her children, and they were all mortals, without any exception. All until over 1900 years after Liluth's death. A child of hers was in danger, with just 3 people of the family remaining. One of them was the wife. She had expected the husband to contact her, to ask the guardian to help save them. But she was pleasantly surprised when the one that prayed to her, called for her, was the wife. So, she appeared before the wife, listened to her situation, and agreed to help her. The husband was an adult, and Sana would not go out of her way to save him. And that's how it's always been. Sana would guard the children without prompting, but the adults have to make their own decisions. If they ask for help, she would give. But if they don't, then she will just ease their pain if they are dying. But his son was still a child, completely defenseless. So, she agreed to help the mother save the son. Sana weaved protection spells all around the property, that would stop anyone from scrying for them, and also keep evil out. As a last option, she gave a ritual to the mother, if all else failed. And fail it did. Evil came, killed the parents. But the ritual used by the mother saved the child, banishing the evil at the same time. But this did not happen without any consequences. The last son of Liluth, the descendant of Hela Odinsdottir, had become more. He was not a mortal, and he was more than a demigod, despite his parents being completely mortal. But he was not a god either. At least, not yet. So, a few minutes after the parents both died, Sana returned to the house, to find it caved in. The roof was destroyed, and the protection spells were all gone. There were a lot of mortals there, but none of them were hers. So, Sana left again, hoping to ensure that her grandson was safe. When she finally found her grandson, he was on the doorstep of a mortal house, left out in the chill, with just a few spells to keep him warm. Recognizing that he had divinity within himself, Sana picked him up, and left. Sana decided, for the first time in 2,000 years, to raise another child. To raise Harry James Potter, the last son of Liluth. A legacy of Hela, such an amazing concept, and one that has remained mostly mysterious, even amongst the magical communities. For over 5,000 years, has humanity used magic, in one form or another. Some were born with a connection to the planet below them, and the nature all around. Druids, they were called, most of the time. But another name they went by, was priests of nature. Some were born connected to their entire universe. They went by many names. Warlocks, mages, sorcerers, and finally, wizards and witches. And there were those that learned to connect themselves to the planet, or the universe, over years of training. They weren't usually born with anything special. They just had a will to learn, to survive, and an affinity to the mystic arts. They went by the name of sorcerers the most. Lastly, came witches. Not to be confused with the female wizards. Witches were those that made deals with one entity or another, in exchange for magical power. Some took these powers from other dimensions, some took them from strong beings from this universe. Whatever the source, the powers still put them a step above the others. But not on Of these extraordinary groups of magic users had managed to completely study the soul. Some were unwilling to stoop that low, while others were afraid of the soul's true power. Some did try, but the why failed to understand what the soul told them. Even still, from the limited understanding of the soul that the magic users had, some had managed to devise a way to manipulate it. A few created artifacts, so pure that they restored the soul to its prime, and kept it like that. Some created artifacts so vile that just creating one of them damned their souls for eternity. Horcrux, the wizards called them. And no matter who created them, no matter how many you created, death came to them still the same. Death, the entity took offense to the creation of these Horcruxes, and usually took their souls way before their time. But even if the wizards had mastered taking a part of a soul, and keeping it safe, they still did not understand the soul completely. Our story starts when a wizard, barely a year old, was hit upon by a curse that was designed to kill. It wasn't the most evil curse, not even close. But it was the one that gave guaranteed death to anything it hits. There was no building a resistance to it. No defending it with a magical shield spell. No magical shield, no matter its strength, would be able to shield its user from the curse. The only way to protect oneself from the curse was to not be the first thing it hits. Physical barriers. When Tom Riddle cast the curse at a 15-month-old baby Harry Potter, he did not foresee the consequences. His soul was mangled from the creation of 5 Horcruxes, which was already stretching the limits of the soul. The instability of his soul led to a piece of Tom Riddle's soul, a 6th Horcrux, to latch on to the only source of pure magic it could find. Harry Potter. Harry Potter himself didn't remain unaffected. Oh no, his soul went through the most unexpected results. His soul was a recently reborn soul, one cleared of its past memories. The past of a sorcerer, a man of science and magic, was erased completely, to give it a new start. But as it usually is, energy can never be completely destroyed, nor created. And what are memories within a soul, if not energy? So, the memories of its past life remained hidden, waiting to be written over, by Harry Potter's new life, his new memories. However, the killing curse for the memories buried deep within the soul to come forth, and the 15-month-old Harry Potter merged with a 50-year-old sorcerer. When he was knocked unconscious because of magical exhaustion, the sorcerer and the wizard became one, and began the process of seeing their memories from an outsider's view. The soul was still pure though, so despite the amount of memories that made up the sorcerer, he wizard remained the dominant personality. Only now, he had a flavor to it that resembled the sorcerer. When he next woke up, Harry Potter, a new resident of number 4, Privet Drive, wasn't just a wizard. Now, he was also a sorcerer. And a scientist. He wasn't just Harry Potter anymore. He was also Dr. Doom, the former ruler of Latveria. All the while, the small piece of soul that once belonged to Tom Riddle remained unnoticed. Safe from the dangerous person that was now Harry Potter, but also unable to do anything to its vessel. And so, Harry, Doom, Potter slept, unknowing what his recents might bring to this new universe he found himself in. 965 AD, Tønsberg, Norway. War. I am so tired of it. For centuries, I've fought for my realm, ever since I was drafted in the Berserker army. Eldor, a Berserker. That's who I am. Before though, I used to be Eldor, the Mason. I was one of the hundreds of people that would break rocks, and work in the mines. 2,000 years of broken rocks, and mined gold, diamond, and steel. And the mines were still not empty. Many of us had already suspected the Allfather of using his magic to refill the mines again and again, just to give us something to work on. Bloody bastard. Then came the Jotun War. Just like my father before me, and his father before him, I was asked to join the Berserker army, only this time, it was under Odin's lead, and not under his dough. Never mind. I'm not allowed to speak of it, or her. Of course, I accepted. I was given the Berserker staff, the same one my father used to use when he was killed for following her. And then I went through a measly 2 years of training. I was taught how to use the staff, and how not to go completely berserk when using it. And now, 300 years after the start of it, the war was finally over. I was finally free to go home, to Asgard, in my small hut, where I can return to breaking rocks Onsiar again. Sigh. Obviously, I have no interest in doing it, but it's not like I have many options. Ellipsis. Well, there is this. Midgard. I love this place, it's so peaceful here. Mortals have no worries, they are so full of life, ironically. Plus, nature. It's so beautiful. Asgard's golden pea. Alice has nothing on the greenery on Midgard. I'm already here anyway, and it'll still take time to clear everything up. We need to take the bodies back on Asgard. Can I do it, though? Can I try and stay back? Will I succeed? Long story short, yes I did. I succeeded in getting away from my camp, and hiding from the sentries for 3 months, until every other Asgardian had left Midgard, leaving only me behind. Ahem. Or so I thought. Stopping my walk up the mountain, I put my hand on the staff and feel the familiar strength come over me. As the rage tries to take over, I push it down, turn around, and ask, "How can I help you?" My lady. The person who called for me was a woman, the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She was fair-skinned, with hair as golden as the setting sun on Asgard. Her eyes were green, and glowing with mischievousness. But I could also feel that she wasn't all she showed herself to be, which was the cause of my being vigilant. She looks me up and down, and says, "You're running away from Asgard." Berserker. That does it. I pull the staff off its holder on my back, and point its tip at her neck, but she doesn't even flinch. Contrarily, she just smirks. I ask, "What do you want, witch?" My, is that any way to talk to a superior? I am a goddess, you know. Goddess of love, to be exact. What are you again? A tiny, insignificant, berserker. The lady, goddess, says, taunting me, and daringly walks forward. Knowing she's a witch, just by instinct, I stab the staff's blade right in her neck, and blink. It passed right through her neck. Damn it, witch. It's an illusion. The image fades, and another image of the goddess appears, most likely a fake too. Gritting my teeth, I ask, "What do you want, goddess of love?" The last 3 words are spoken with N. Ow contempt to tell her I don't respect her, at all. Still smirking, the blonde witch waves her hand pointing upwards, and says, "What were you going to do about Heimdall and his all-seeing sight, berserker? He would have surely known you were here, and brought you back. Or did you not know it? Truly, Heimdall can see me now." Getting a bit afraid, I look up, hoping the Bifrost does not return. "Oh, he can't see you for now. I'm making sure of it," the witch says, like I'm supposed to thank her for it. Well, I probably should. I would have been in Asgardian prison otherwise, and there's no escaping Asgardian prisons. "Thank you, my lady," I say. She chuckles, and mumbles, "Lady to witch to goddess to witch to lady. Came right back to the beginning, didn't you?" I squint my eyes, confused. I never called her a witch. Not out loud at least. "Oh, you have so much to learn, berserker. Mind arts is just the beginning of it. Yes, I read your mind, and the memories within. Why, that is the reason I approached you," the goddess says, again smiling at me. I relax a bit, at the smile. Something about the smile just lets me know, I'm not in any trouble. The goddess won't harm me. "How can I help you then, my lady?" I ask, wanting to pay her back, as I put the staff on my back. The goddess puts her hand in a pouch on her hip, her very attractive hip, and pulls something out. She hands it to me, and says, "That, my dear, is the lifeline potion, taken straight from the tablet of life and death, but obviously, you don't know what it is." I blush, confirming her statement. I say, "By its name, at least. I guess it heals ailments, my lady." "Amora," the goddess, Amora, says, smiling again, making my heart beat even faster. She says, "My name is Amora, berserker. And yes, it heals anyone, from any ailment. And even stops death from claiming a life for a while. But it's not just that." Seeing her pause, I put the flask in front of my eyes, and examine it, not that I understand anything. It just looks like golden water to me. I ask, "What else does it do, my lady Amora?" "Why, berserker, it brings people to their highest evolutionary potential. For a mortal, it'll just make them a tad bit stronger, immortal, and nigh omniscient." Alas, Mortal bodies are not meant for such powers, and they die soon enough, despite their so-called immortality. But, as Esir, it does exactly as promised. Or so I hope, Amora says, frowning at the end. The frown she shows me makes my heart skip. Immediately, I ask, what can I do to help you perfect it, my lady? I am not a potions master. But I can help you get the harder to get ingredients, and search for more of the stuff. Amora waves her hand, and says, oh, no need, Berserker. I have already perfected it. Then what's the problem? Why not take it and attain the highest evolution you can? I ask, getting confused, and disheartened that I am unable to help my lady. Amora becomes a bit sad, and says, the problem is that I don't know if it'll actually work. Eldor, I haven't tested it yet, beyond the 27 monkeys, 5 humans, and 1 wolf. Alas, all of them died. And I can't just ask any Asgardian soldier to try it now, can I? I'll do it. I'll test the potion, my lady. If it means helping you, then I'll do it. I say, readily volunteering for the task. It's the only way I can help my lady Amora. Amora smiles widely, making me smile too, and my heart starts beating faster. She approaches me, and puts her hand on my cheek. She says, I can't ask you to do that, Eldor. You've just gotten out of one war, and I can't ask you to risk your life again. My lady Amora is so considerate. She cares for me. Stealing my resolve, I push her hand down gently, and smiling at her, I say, don't worry, my lady. I will be fine. Done with reassuring my lady Amora, I pull the cork out, and swallow the golden liquid within the flask in one go. The last thing I see is my vision getting a bit golden, as I black out. As Eldor drinks the lifeline potion and falls down, unconscious, he misses the smirk on the face of Amora, as she picks him up. She carries him on her shoulder, and teleports to her current residence, in a palace of a dumb mortal king. Dropping the berserker on one bed in a room, she dusts her hands, and says, dumb berserker. I never would have figured it's so easy to manipulate a berserker. Usually they're so mentally resilient. Well, my good luck. Hopefully the potion works as advertised, and I can evolve further. If he dies, well, there's a lot of dumber people I can manipulate. Throwing a last glance at the trembling berserker, Amora turns around and goes to her room. The evolution will take a few days' time anyway. Amora looks at the whimpering berserker, and scoffs, thinking him a weakling. I think the potion actually works. But I'll still keep vigilant, just in case this one dies. Any potion that requires stuff such as this one, is bound to be risky. Amora thinks to herself, remembering the dangerous ingredients she used in the potion. The tablet of life and death was an artifact, said to be written by a mortal, on the behest of a god. It does a lot of things, but Amora was only interested in one. The lifeline formula, a potion, made using alchemy, that required highly dangerous stuff like Uru, celestial brain matter, tooth of a royal Asgardian, an apple from Idun's tree, energy of an elder god, and even a flower from Queen Frigga's garden. Thankfully, being a friend of the goddess of immortality herself, getting a few golden apples was not that hard. The rest of the ingredients, she had either stolen or bought from the collector. The energy of an elder god was hard, but not impossible if you know where to look. And she knew right where one particular elder god had her resting place. And it's not like Gia ever does anything to those who steal from her. All this, used in a complex alchemical process lasting 7 days, and 7 nights, ending when the full moon rises overhead, gives rise to a cauldron full of golden liquid, called the lifeline formula. As she'd explained to the berserker before, it unlocks to complete evolutionary potential of any being that takes it. But, there's a condition. The body of the being that takes it, as well as the mind, should be resilient enough. Humans become immortal, gaining the cosmic powers of their eternal cousins. The other super-powered mortals get an enhancement to their powers, as well as the promised immortality. Both of these groups get physically stronger, strong enough to challenge this berserker himself in strength, although sans his staff. But, since they're still weak mortals, every one of them dies, their bodies not able to handle all the power coursing through it. Their minds snap, not able to cope with the new knowledge, and the Instinctual cosmic awareness. All this happened to dozens of humans, and none of them survived the potion beyond 2 months. During those 2 months, Amora kept them with her, feeding them lies of their new godhood. But no matter how much she tried, the mortals died anyway. So, she thought, maybe I need better-bodied beings. Why not Asgardians? And that brings us to now. It's been 3 days since the berserker foolishly drank the potion. Amora was proud to note that her seduction techniques were still up to task, and glad that the potion was at least showing some signs of success. In these 3 days, the berserker had gone from a relatively tiny 5 feet 10 to a respectable Asgardian height of 6 feet 4. His muscles had filled up nicely, and the stomach he'd grown eating had flattened up, giving his abs a nice look. If he wasn't a moron, Amora would have been tempted to have some fun with his sleeping body. Alas, he was still just a berserker. Then, there was his magic. Where before it was barely there. Enough to keep him alive for these centuries, now, it looked like it was enough to keep him alive for 10,000 more years. He had no trace of divinity, yet, but it looked like he would awaken it sooner or later. All in all, this barely stronger than human berserker had gotten as strong as a respectable Asgardian warrior. And all this is under my complete control. Amora thinks, smirking to herself. Suddenly, Amora notices something that makes her stop. The berserker's heart was getting weaker, making him give out. The berserker was dying. Before she can even get up to cast her spells, the berserker's heart stops, and he dies. With Eldor. Where am I? Eldor wonders, looking around. Last I remember was drinking the potion Lady Amora gave me. He recalls, thinking back on his memories. This makes him pause, though. Lady Amora, why am I calling the witch lady? Why the hell did I drink something that killed humans? Norns. No, the witch used her sorcery on me. This starts a string of expletives from Eldor, cursing the goddess of love and her feminine wiles. Ending his cursing, Eldor looks around, and wonders, and now, I'm probably dead. Is this Valhalla? Doesn't look like it. There was just black everywhere, with a few silvery wisps floating around in this void. Like a sore thumb, he struck out. He was the sole golden wisp, in all the silver wisps. Sardonically, he muses. Looks like the lifeline potion, whatever in hell it was, made my spirit brighter. I should have never run away from Asgard. He says the last part cursing himself. Blaming himself for his current situation. Suddenly though, he sees a hole form in the void in front of him, and before he can do anything, it pulls him in and through it, he goes back to the mortal plane. Unknowing to him, at the time, the wormhole in the realm of the dead manages to pull another soul through it, right before it can close. That soul, a weak, silvery soul, unfortunately, exits out in the mortal plane. At the exact same place where the golden soul of the berserker came out, and immediately enters the only available body there. The berserker's. Unfortunately, for the soul, again, its presence is pretty weak. And insignificant, as compared to the soul of an Asgardian. Even if said Asgardian was once a puny berserker, said soul still has over 2,500 years more baggage than the silver human soul. So, the golden soul, using its newly awakened powers, thanks to the lifeline potion, absorbs the soul within itself, but still manages to keep its own dominance. With Amora, the berserker's heart giving out brings Amora to her feet, and she teleports right near the sleeping warrior. Putting her hand on his chest, she thinks he's dead. But he should have at least survived a week, and he should have been awake before dying. Frowning angrily, Amora whispers, I am not letting this dumb brute die, not before I get the potion perfect, at least. And summons a lightning spell to her hand. While not as strong as the lightning from the bitch Hela's hammer, this lightning still contains the divine energy of an Asgardian goddess. So, when she slams our hand on the heart of the berserker, the fact that it beats once does not surprise her. Summoning the spell again, Amora slams it down again, and again. Finally, a minute after his death, the berserker's heart starts beating again. Letting Amora finally breath out in relief. Amora sighs, and looks at the still sleeping berserker. She asks, why did he die? Did the potion react to something in his body? I have no idea what potions they give to the berserkers, and this Eldor probably doesn't know either. Casting a medical diagnosis spell, Amora compares the previous results with the one now. Bones are stronger, muscles are more defined, and his magic store has increased yet again. No cosmic energy, yet, so that's a relief. What's this? His brain activity has increased a bit, not much, but still. This is the first mental effect he's shown, yet. This is good. Progress. 'Cause of his temporary death. Still unknown. Shaking her head, Amora wipes the sweat off, and murmurs, well, never mind now. He's alive, and well. I'll see when he wakes up. If he does, that is. As Amora stands up to leave, she's suddenly stopped by a hand pulling her down and putting her in a choke hold. Quicker than her attacker can see, Amora conjures a dagger, and stabs it behind her in her attacker's chest. Eldor Pav. As I begin waking up again, I immediately feel the changes done to my body. Somehow, I was bigger, and a lot stronger. I don't know how strong though, and I wouldn't, unless I test it out. There's also a few years of new memories in my head, but my original memories drown them out, and I have no idea what they contain, yet. Wakes up. If he does, that is. I hear a familiar voice saying, as I'm back to the realm of consciousness. Amora, the witch, she mind-controlled me, and made me drink an experimental potion. Knowing that surprise is the only way I'll win against an experienced witch like her, I open my eyes, seeing her turn her back to me, and grab her hand. With a surprisingly firm pull, I pull her on top of me, and put her in a chokehold, hoping to break her neck, or in the least, choke her out. I even use my legs, to make sure she doesn't free herself. Unfortunately, I have no weapons of my own, for now. While she's a witch, she summons a blade from somewhere, and stabs it in my chest, making me wince. Thank Boar for the height difference. Her dagger stabs me a few inches below my heart. Grunting in pain, I loosen the hold for barely half a second, and now include her hands within the choke. She starts stumbling around, using her still superior strength to make me leave the chokehold. She even uses her head as a weapon, and hits me on my chin a few times. Stay still, you foul witch. I snarl out, hitting my own head forward. Amora chokes out, as I keep my inner elbow on her neck, stopping her airflow, as another dagger stabs into my hand, conjured and sent with the vile magic of hers. I feel my hand slipping. Please, don't fail me, my body. I can't let her go now. She'll either kill me, or she'll control me to do her bidding. All fathers, give me strength, I pray, in my mind, putting some more effort at making sure she stays still. Ignoring the two daggers stabbing my body. Surprisingly, I feel a change immediately. I feel a tingle on my skin, and then see my body changing into the silver metal of her daggers, as if in answer to my prayers. And I feel myself getting even stronger. Somehow, I was absorbing her metal daggers, and turning my body into them. Absorbing man, a voice whispers in the back of my mind, which brings a few memories forth. Of a man touching stone and turning his own skin to stone. Another memory comes forth, of a man my mind whispers, a Gregor, touching a turtle and killing it immediately. I know, that these memories belong to the set of memories I woke up with, and that they are supposed to be just stories, but I trust it anyway. This is for trying to control me, witch. I snarl out, and force the absorption magic to work faster, this time, focusing on absorbing the witch herself. Although I lose my new metal form, I feel the witch losing her own strength, as her magic enters my body. She still stumbles around, although now a lot weaker than before, trying real hard to save herself. It hurts like hell, all this extra magic and memories, but I grit my teeth and persevere. Amora, though, has no choice but to keep choking, as life leaves her body. She tries to cast a few spells, but it doesn't work, as most of her magic is already within my body. As the light finally leaves Amora's eyes, I absorb the last vestiges of her magic, and her life, killing her. I see her body get turned to a dry husk, and feel 1033 years worth of memories enter my own mind. What the hell is this shit? I whisper, feeling myself losing consciousness. Knowing I'm going to be knocked out, I use the new memories, and instinctively cast a few spells, barring entry for anyone, from anywhere, so that no one disturbs my sleep. As I wonder how I know all this stuff, I close my eyes, letting sleep claim me. Absorbed the SI soul. So, the main personality is still the Berserkers. The MC's powers are as follows. 1. Material absorption. Like the absorbing man, or any decent Osmosian, Ben 10 MC can mimic material, and turn his skin and body to it. 2. If he's willful enough, MC can absorb life force like a Gregor. And somewhat like Rogue and absorb memories within himself. But, sufficiently strong beings can fight him for it. And, he needs constant physical contact for it to work. 3. This one's not a power, but a limitation. Only one power will work at a time. If he wants to absorb someone, he loses the metal form, and he can also only absorb one material at a time. That's it for now. Rest. You'll see when it comes. If it comes. But, no matter what happens, he won't just copy mutant abilities. That's a real op move and I'm not ready to implement it. The only way he can copy power is by killing enemies and absorbing their souls. I have no idea if any character has this ability. But, even if he does absorb powers, he will still be a purely physical fighter. Until then, ta-ta. The words of the prophecy kept on spinning through his head, along with the short explanation that Dumbledore had given him. Neither can live, while the other survives. Either he, Harry Potter, will have to kill Tom Riddle, or die by his hands. In the end, the two wizards, with their fates entwined, will have to fight each other, and only one will remain alive. Harry was currently sitting in an empty room. About a minute's walk from Dumbledore's office, barely 5 minutes after Dumbledore had dismissed him from there. Sirius. Sirius was dead. The one adult that Harry could trust completely, one adult whom Harry loved almost as much as he did his parents. And he was dead. Dead because of Harry's naivety, because of Dumbledore's reluctance to trust Harry, because of Snape's goading, and dead because of Voldemort's trickery. And the most hated reason for Sirius's death, the prophecy. He, Harry Potter, was supposed to be the one to kill Voldemort once and for all, when hundreds of other wizards, far more learned and far more powerful than him, had died at his hands. He had wanted to be just Harry, a wizard who has fun with magic, with his friends, but now, he didn't even want to be that anymore. He didn't even want to be Harry anymore, let alone Harry Potter, the prophesied killer of Voldemort. Anger fills his heart, thanks to all that had happened to him. Anger at himself. Why did I not visit Grimmauld Place first? It was literally right there, in London. Why did I believe Creature? Why did I trust in visions that Voldemort sent me? Harry thought. Anger at Voldemort, for all the obvious reasons. Anger at Bellatrix, for being the one who pushed Sirius through the veil. Anger at Sirius. Why did you not stay home, Sirius? I know you hated it, but it was the safest place for you. Why did you taunt Bellatrix? Why did you not act nicer with Creature? Anger at the house elf, Creature, for causing the death of his godfather, however cunningle it might have been. Anger at Dumbledore. What kind of adult tells an actual 15-year-old that he's destined to kill someone 5 decades older than him? Why does he have to put so much stock in prophecies anyway? And anger at the prophecy itself. Harry clenches his hands, his mouth shut close to prevent himself from screaming out loud. His anger keeps on surging within his heart, begging to be released, and Harry gives in. Harry drops down from the desk he was sitting on, and throws the desk at the wall, his mind relishing in the sound of breaking wood. He then picks a chair up, and throws that at the wall too, once again causing the wood to break. But this was not enough. No, he wanted to experience pain, actual physical pain. His eye catching the wall of the classroom, Harry walks towards it, taking a moment to touch the cold, smooth stones that made it up. Ah! Harry yells, not able to keep it in any longer, and pulls his hand back. Clenching his fist tighter, Harry punches straight towards the smooth stone wall. But, where he had expected pain, and the sound of his bones breaking, he hears a different sound, as his hand punches through the wall. Crack, boom. The cobblestone wall, made up of multiple stones glued together with the help of something he didn't know of, and magic, now had a hole in the wall, with a single stone missing. Harry's fist had punched the stone, and sent it flying on to the other side of the wall. Harry blinks through his tears, confusion taking over his anger as the primary emotion. "That's odd," he says, looking at the roughly round-shaped hole in the wall, with half his arm through it. He couldn't see his arm, thanks to it being on the other side, but he felt odd. He had expected pain, a lot of it. He hadn't held back in his punch, his anger, his psychological pain needing to feel it physically. By experience, he knew that punching wooden walls hurt like a bitch, and punching stones even more so. Instead, his hand had punched a stone with so much force that it had gotten loose out of the wall, and was thrown in the room beside this one. Thankfully, the missing stone was around as large as his own head, and so his hand wasn't even remotely stuck. Slowly, very gently so as to not harm the obviously delicate wall even more, Harry pulls his hand out of the hole. What else could he believe, to explain the missing stone? Obviously, the wall had lost most of its magic, and the stones were probably halfway loose anyway. But, when his right hand exits out of the hole it had made for itself, Harry is forced to blink once again, even more confused. The confusion then leads to fear, and he rapidly takes a few steps back, waving his hand around to get rid of whatever was covering it. "What the hell?" Harry whispers, when his rapid motions fail to throw whatever was covering his hand away. And then, once again curious, he looks at his hand, really looks at it. His hand, which was supposed to be flesh and bones, looked to be covered in some sort of dull silver-colored metal. The silver-colored metal was covering the entirety of his fist, as well as half of his forearm. It was as if Harry had dipped his hand in a vat of molten silver, which had then cooled off. While still keeping his arm intact, Harry tries to move his arm, and is pleasantly surprised to find his arm just as easy to move as before. His fingers felt a bit more solid, but he could still move them freely, with the metal not hindering his joints in any way. "What the hell?" Harry whispers once again, his previous adrenaline completely leaving his body. His arm was covered in silver, and he had used this arm to punch a hole in a stone wall. His confusion was valid, at least to him. Harry jumps up, suddenly, seeing the metallic shine that had just covered his hand start retreating. As if the molten silver from before was being sucked into his skin, and before long, he sees his own pale skin once again, the silver nowhere to be seen. As a test, Harry approaches the wall once again, and knocks on another one of the stones, very far away from the hole in the wall. "Ow," Harry says, wincing from the pain. So, the stone is not fake, he thinks, not knowing if he should be relieved or afraid. Keeping his right hand in front of him, Harry sits down on another desk, folding his legs. Clenching his fists a few times, Harry observes his hand completely, not knowing what had just happened. But he liked it, the feeling of temporary strength. He had felt as if nothing could stop him. It gave him some relief over all that had happened to him. His mind immediately conjures up an image of him punching Voldemort's head off, using the silver arm thingy, or punching Bellatrix's head off, causing him to involuntarily chuckle. Harry smiles, feeling a little bit of hope for himself. He had wanted to not even be Harry, and it seemed the universe had listened to him for once. He had become something else, something more. That is, if it wasn't a one-time thing, if he could conjure the silver once again. Closing his eyes, Harry focuses within himself, and focuses on bringing the silver back to cover his arm, cover his body. Remembering his old theory of magic lessons, Harry wills it to happen. Wills the silver metal to cover his arm once again. This time, he feels it happen, like a switch had been turned on, as something crawls all over his body, and not just his forearm. Snap! Harry widens his eyes, as his body drops down on the ground, falling through the now breaking desk. Fortunately, however, he couldn't feel anything, not even a little bit of pain. Pushing the broken wood pieces away from himself, Harry stands up. Lifting his hands up, he sees that both his hands were now covered with the silver metal, and so were his legs. His clothes were still clothes. There wasn't any change there, but he had expected it. It seemed this new development only affected him, and not his clothes. Despite being similar to silver, the metal that covered his body was not reflective, though. It was dulled, and so, Harry couldn't see if the changes went to his head and hair too, thanks to there being no reflection. A very gentle pull on his oversized shirt, however, proves to him that his chest and stomach at least were covered by the metal. Another pull on his pants shows him that even his groin was metallic, and so was his butt. He's a teenager, No one blames him for checking his groin first. Harry then takes his hand towards his face, and gently touches it, not wanting to harm his face. But he didn't need to worry, because even his face was covered by the metal. Brilliant, Harry whispers, looking at his metal arms and legs. The broken desk was proof enough that he was heavier now, but Harry couldn't feel it. He couldn't feel any changes to his weight or body balance. He felt perfectly natural, with nothing wrong with his body. As an experiment, Harry lifts his left hand in front of himself and pokes at it with his right hand's index finger. The metal stays like that, not giving in. He then knocks on his arm, causing it to make a gong-like sound of metal hitting metal. Poking his tongue out, Harry gently touches his metal hand to it, and then to his teeth. And is surprised to find just metal, and not soft flesh or whatever the hell teeth are made of. Which meant, even his tongue and teeth are affected by this metal. Bloody hell, thinks Harry, everything confusing him even more. Horrified, Harry looks up, staring at the wall he had punched a hole in. He whispers to himself, am I completely metal? Inside and out. The shock of everything that had happened to him, including Sirius's death, Dumbledore's revelations, and his new superpower, proves to be too much for Harry's teenage mind to handle, and he drops down, unconscious. Thankfully, his body changes back to flesh before his body slams into the ground, leaving the ground completely intact, but causing Harry's head to hit the ground. Crack, with a loud crack sound. The familiar house elf, by the name of Dobby, appears inside the room, feeling something wrong with his Harry Potter. Harry Potter, sir, Dobby AKS, turning his head all around the room he had found himself appearing in. He sees Harry fallen on the ground, unconscious, and runs towards him, not making much noise. Touching his left hand on Harry's left arm, Dobby snaps the fingers of his right hand, and transports both himself and Harry to the hospital wing of Hogwarts, immediately beginning to call out for the healer, Madame Pomfrey, who begins a checkup immediately. They both give out sighs of relief, however, when all tests reveal that Harry is just in shock, which caused him to faint, and a small head injury, leaving him to sleep on a bed beside the 5 friends he had taken with him to the ministry. Madame Pomfrey goes back to work, while Dobby goes back to the laundry room to finish washing the students' clothes. Meanwhile, the room remains closed, no one bothering to check it. And so does the other room, one Harry had punched a hole into. What this one small change will bring to Harry Potter's fate, no one knew. Alexander Summers, born September 19, 1944, in San Francisco, California. That is my name, apparently. Or is it Prithviraj Kulkarni, born October 27, 1996, in Belgaum, Karnataka? I don't know. I just woke up, and I'm 2 people. Or maybe I was 1, and now I'm another. Prithviraj was a normal guy, 25 years old, working in a shitty back office job. He bought stocks as a side hustle, together which had left him with around 50,000 rupees in savings. He wasn't a die-hard fan of anything, but he enjoyed watching movies, TV series, and even anime. But I'm in some sort of prison now, and nowhere in Prithviraj's life did I ever see him commit a crime. Or at least nothing that should land me in a prison as well built as this. Alexander, meanwhile, was also normal. At least, in the beginning it was normal. Born before the end of World War II, he helped his parents out a lot. His father was an army man, while his mother was just a simple waitress. Alex helped them both immensely, be it in chores or in earning money. They didn't have much in the way of savings, but they made do. But then, 2 things happened simultaneously. When Alex was 6 years old, his mother gave birth to another son, Christopher. And then, just a few months later, his father died of illnesses he caught during the war. Life still went on. Alex became the man of the house, so to speak, and began working a job. It began as a paper boy, for a few years, and then he worked in a movie theater. He then switched to working as a waiter, not in the same restaurant as his mother, and then a cook. He helped his mother start some savings, so that Christopher might not go through the same things that he had to go through. One day, Alex saw one of his old bullies, by the name of Tommy, bully his brother, Christopher. Christopher, just 8 years old, was being bullied by a 15-year-old. Alex saw red, and charged to attack Tommy. Something happened during that fight, something that even Alex didn't know what it was, and Tommy's face got burned on the right side. The thing was, Alex just punched him a few times. Alex was tried as an adult, charged with attempted murder, and sentenced to 10 years in California State Penitentiary. His mother was ashamed, as well as devastated. And Chris was just scared. Alex was resigned to his fate. He had understood that there was something inside of him that had hurt Tommy, and he suppressed it, kept a tight lid on it. And that brings us to now. I was in a simple prison cell, with one other man with me. He was staring at me, as I looked all around the room, observing everything as if this is the first time I'm seeing it all. The man was named Roscoe, apparently, if my memories are to be believed. "You looking for a way out now, kid? Thought you liked it in here?" The man asks, seeing me look around after just waking up. I look at him, and say, "No, just seeing." Roscoe chuckles, and says, "As long as you know there's no way out, Alex. The guards will sooner kill us than let us escape." Ah, so I am Alex now. Which means I was Prithviraj before. Everything is so confusing. Memories were all mixed up. I pick up my pillow, looking to see if I can find a phone. Did Alex own an Android or an iPhone? Wait, do those phones even exist? What year is it? 1960. Yeah. They definitely don't. Alex was born so far in the past, or was Prithviraj born in the future? Am I one, or the other? Or am I both? Ow, I wince, rubbing my forehead. My head hurts. Everything hurts. Everything burns. It wants to get out. It will get out. RGHHHHH. I yell, slamming my fists on the ground, having no idea when I'd fallen down. My memories were showing me something, but it was all just thrown in together, making my head hurt. Feeling something touch my shoulder, I slap my hand towards it, sending Roscoe flying with a red-colored punch. I stare at my fist, as Roscoe slams into the wall, bleeding from his head. My hand was glowing. It was red, bright crimson red. Like a blast, the red spreads all over the room, burning everything. My clothes, my bed, the pillow, the water bottle, Roscoe's bed, his stuff, everything burns. Roscoe. He also burns, his screams sounding loudly all over the prison. And I remain the only unburnt thing in the prison cell. The last thing I see before I become unconscious, is the highly dense iron door being opened, letting in a few people. The next time I open my eyes, I'm in solitary confinement. Sitting up, I once again observe everything, this time my memories a bit clearer, and without an aching head. I was Alexander Summers, and I was Prithviraj Kulkarni. But now, I am both. A mixture of the two. I have the memories of both Alex and Prithviraj, all inside my head. They don't make sense still, but they're not as chaotic right now. When the prison guard brings me my lunch, I ask him what had happened. And he tells me, everything. The current rumor mill was that Roscoe tried touching me inappropriately, and I took revenge by burning him, and everything else. My memories of the last 2 years in prison tell me that Roscoe was not that kind of person. He had been here for 3 years before I even came here, but he was a good man. Or at least, as good as criminals can be. They didn't find what I used to create fire, but I know now. The red glowing hand, the red in my vision, the burning sensation. I had something inside me, that much was already clear, even to Alex. That something was what he had unwittingly used to burn Tommy's face, and Alex had suppressed it, never letting it out. And yesterday morning, it got out. It was some sort of energy, that was either created within me, or I took it from somewhere else. Maybe this energy is what made Captain America into a superhero. Nah, that was Vita Ray's, believed to be pure life energy. My energy is far more dangerous. And then, I pause, 2 sets of memories fighting to get at the forefront. Alexander Summers's memories told me tales of Captain America, a normal guy from Brooklyn that was turned into a superhero by a German scientist. A real person that fought during World War II, and disappeared right before it ended. Prithviraj Kulkarni's memories, meanwhile, told me about a movie series named Captain America. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The thing is, they were both the same people, with same faces. My head hurt some more, and it persists for a few hours before it automatically dissipates. And it is only then that I realize it. My name is Alexander Summers. Summers. And I'm a mutant in the Marvel Universe. At least, I might be in one of the Marvel Universes. 47, 48, 49, 50. I huff, as I sit back from my push-ups, resting on my knees. It has been 2 years since I woke up in solitary confinement, and since I requested to be kept here. Of course, they let me out every few days, since I wasn't causing any troubles. But they were also afraid of me burning more of their beds with some unknown means, and so, they allowed me my freedom of choice. There was a reason I chose to isolate myself here, and it went beyond the original Alex's. I don't want to harm anyone else, from the X-Men movies. Oh, yeah. Had all my memories now. All of Alex's and P.R. Prithviraj's memories were now inside my mind, as if they came from the same person. Of course, it only goes so far since I've definitely forgotten a lot of stuff. But I've tried to memorize most of He Marvel-related stuff by way of mentally repeating stuff. Back to my reason. Being in solitary confinement allowed me a degree of freedom that is a lot higher than anything the outer prison can give me. I got to train my body intensely. Since I don't have to watch my back all the time. They even gave me access to the gym once a week, since, well, why would they even refuse? I chose to be in solitary, and I never caused trouble. Well, except for the first burning that caused Roscoe's death. May he rest in peace. The solitary confinement even allowed me to train my energy, one that Alex kept suppressed because he was afraid of it. And let me tell you, he was right to be afraid. The energy is destructive, and wild. Every time I try to bring it it goes wild, trying to burn everything. Thankfully, I had the good graces of trying it naked, while keeping all of the flammable stuff hidden. Just like how a snake cannot poison itself, my energy doesn't harm me. Raising my right hand, I focus on my connection to that energy. And call it forward. My hand glows with a soft red light, as the light surges forward from my torso to my hand like a wave. 2 discs are formed around my forearm, crossed over in an X. That start spinning around my forearm, while moving up and down. My fist then glows red, a dark red, and a beam of that charged energy shoots out from it. Before it can go and damage the wall, I hold my left hand over my fist, causing the energy beam to hit my left palm. My hand gets pushed back a little, as it glows red after absorbing the energy. But otherwise, it remains unharmed. As you can see, even after 2 years of training in prison, the most I can do is fire a small beam out of my fists. This is useful, definitely, but it is nowhere near enough for me. When I do this, most of the energy is released into the air, the spinning disks of energy taking care of it. Some of it, however, is absorbed back into my body by my left hand. I've done this so many times, that I have inherently realized that my right hand is better for attacking, while my left is better for absorbing energy. I doubt it will work for all energy, however. Getting the water from the table, I empty the bottle in one go. And sit back on my bed, to relax. And then, the door to my cell opens, letting in 3 people, one of them the warden of the prison. The other 2 were men I've waited for these last 2 years. Charles Xavier, and Eric Lenscher. Professor X, and Magneto. Mr. Summers, my name is Professor Charles Xavier, and this is my partner Eric Lenscher. We're here to make you an offer. Charles Xavier says, as he enters the cell, with Magneto right behind him. I look at them both, and ask, I'm listening. The pair shares a glance, and Charles touches 2 fingers of his right hand on his forehead. As one, the warden, and his 2 guards walk out, and begin talking amongst themselves. I just stare at them, wondering if my jury-rigged mental defense works. Xavier says, you have gifts. Something that other people don't have. So do I, so does Eric. We, the CIA, are gathering people of similar situations, to fight an enemy who is like us. Prove it. Prove you're different, I say, still sitting down on my bed. Charles takes a step back, and Eric gets defensive, probably judging me to be aggressive. I must be quite a sight, just 18 years old and in solitary confinement. My body was also pretty well defined, thanks to the presence of the energy and my own physical conditioning. Eric, Magneto, waves his hand, and my water jug floats over to him. He smirks at me, and drinks the water. Charles says, Eric here is a magnetokinetic, he can control magnetic fields to manipulate metals. I myself am a telepath, I can read and manipulate minds. As you might have seen, I mentally told these gentlemen to go to the side to discuss their favorite baseball teams. Well, I'll be damned. So this is definitely similar to my memories. I'm not crazy, I'm not delusional. I mean, my memories and my energy showed me that I'm not, but still. Good to have a confirmation from someone else. I nod, slowly, and say, if I'm going to work for the government, then I have some conditions. The pair once more exchanges a look, and Charles says, we aren't authorized to agree to any conditions you might put forth, I'm afraid. If you want, I can. I just see the annoying CE on Eric's face right before he interrupts Charles. He says, for fuck's sake, Charles. Agree to whatever he says. You can have the CIA accept his demands later. The more we delay here, the higher the chances get that Shaw succeeds. Charles sighs, and reluctantly nods. He then asks me, what are your conditions? I smile, happy at finally getting to leave this prison, forever if I have my way. As I start stating my conditions, I internally sigh in relief. Either my energy stops his telepathy from working, or my other memories are not accessible to him. Either way, I'm safe from a manipulative, future-knowing Charles Xavier. I wonder how my life will turn out to be. Whoosh! A multicolored light drops down from the skies over the small village of Kanakgayo, in the southern parts of Maharashtra. The village belonged to a group of around 50 Ratha people, living independent of any other kingdoms in that area, preferring to stay out of the wars. Two women walk out of the light, both of them vastly different from one another. One wore white clothes, covering her entire body save her head, with a blue cloak floating behind her. The clothes were armored, protecting her chest, stomach, and her joints with a metallic covering. The other woman wore a beautiful green robe, that waved in the air as the woman floated forward. Yes, floated, the woman was floating without her feet actually touching the ground. The two women stop in front of a house, as the white-clothed woman looks at her hands in sadness. Are you sure you want to do this, Hild? Leave your daughter in the hands of mortals? The green-robed woman asks, as she sadly looks at her friend tearfully stare at the small baby in her hands. The baby was around a century old, but thanks to the extended age of the Asgardians, it looked barely old enough to be a year old. The baby looks up at Hild, with all the curiosity of a 100-year-old baby Esir, and starts playing with Hild's black hair, that hung near her face. With a sad smile, Hild says, we both know where he is sending us, Amora. There is a very low chance that I will return to my daughter. And I don't want my child to be raised anywhere near his presence. He has caused us enough harm as is. Sighing, Amora says, you don't want him to turn your daughter into a new Valkyrie, do you? You don't trust your king. Hild snorts, and dryly asks, after everything he and his daughter have done, do you? I have slaughtered children in the name of peace, my love. For Asgard, never again. My daughter will become her own person, shaped by her experiences. And become a Midgardian Valkyrie, someone far, far better than us Aesir ones. And then, Hild gently places her daughter down on the ground. Before her daughter even touches the ground, however, a basket appears underneath her. Courtesy of the green-robed Amora, who rolls her eyes at the trust shown by her current lover. Hild then turns away from the confused daughter, and says, get your spells over with, Amora. We need to return before Heimdall gets suspicious of the activated Bifrost. Amora huffs, and says, you have far less trust in my talents than I do in yours, my love. Do not worry, he cannot hear, or see us. And trust Brunhilde to distract him long enough for us to be over. Amora then leans down, and places her hand on the baby's forehead, which causes the baby to let out a yawn, and start going to sleep. She keeps her hand there for a few seconds, and then stands back up, dusting her hands. Done. Your dot is completely mortal for now, her magic hidden away temporarily. Her Aesir form will only awaken when she turns 20, or when she is in danger, whichever happens first, after which she will return to aging like an Aesir, and I will come find her. Amora says, turning towards Hild with a smile. Happy with the task, Hild holds Amora's hands, and pulls her into a kiss. She then gets an idea, and says, just one more thing. I need you to hide my tusk in something, and enchant it so no one can remove it. This way, she will have a weapon just in case she's attacked by something more dangerous than mortals. Sighing, Amora takes the tusk, the sword of Hild the Valkyrie, in her hands, and brushes her fingers on the Asgardian steel weapon. The sword ripples, as a wave of her magic flows through it, and slowly shifts its shape. In the end, Amora holds a bracelet, gold in color, with a tiny replica of the tusk hanging off of it. She gently wraps it around the little baby Helga's wrist, and enchants it so only Amora, Hild, or Helga herself can remove it. But only after a little bit of magic is provided to it. The sword will appear to Helga whenever she has need of it, to fight something not quite mortal. Even with her magic and strength locked away, Amora knew that nothing mortal will be able to kill her. She didn't know what Hild was going to use tomorrow, when she would inevitably fight the most dangerous woman in the universe, but she knew that Hild won't purposefully walk to her death. Amora clenches her fists, her anger at Odin resurfacing. He had failed his daughter, and now, he was sending Hela's former subordinates to subdue her. Odin knew it was impossible for the Valkyrie to succeed, and yet, he was still sending them to their deaths. And Valkyrie, honor-bound to follow the king's orders, will die if he says so. Amora was glad that Hild did not want to take a risk with her daughter. She wasn't Amora's daughter, no. She had met Hild barely half a century ago. Little Helga was the daughter of Hilden and Ljusalfar woman named Rotha. But Amora loved her the same. Once Amora steps back, Hild once more approaches her daughter, and lays another kiss on her brow. She then whispers something to her, which Amora pointedly ignores, and then the both walk a small distance away. Baby Helga opens her eyes, just in time to see her mother and her mother's lover disappear in a bright light beam, that disappears into the sky. She goes to sleep, believing it to be a dream. In the morning, little Helga is found by the couple chosen by Amora to be Helga's new parents. They had recently lost a son to an illness, which not even the local Vadia had been able to cure, and were trying for a child. When they find a child on their doorsteps, with skin tone just a bit darker than their own, they pick her up and take her inside, already willing to raise the baby on their own. And so it is, that Ravindra and Hina Rain become parents to a sweet little baby girl that they name Kavita. A girl that they don't know has Aesir blood in her, with most of her potential locked away by way of magic. And so begins the tale of the Earthen Valkyrie. September 1994, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Walking through the halls of Hogwarts, I sigh in content. Even being here, in this magical new world, for 17 years, hasn't made me used to this fact. The fact that I died, and that I was reborn as a wizard, at that, in the magical world of Harry Potter. Cepheus Tonks, the son of Andromeda and Edward Tonks, and the younger brother of Nymphadora Tonks. Cepheus, named after the father of Andromeda from Greek mythology. I'm at least glad that my name isn't as bad as Nymphadora. Merlin, it makes me wonder what Mum was smoking when she named her. My childhood, all 11 years of it, were spent in trying tea. Oh, get used to the fact that I'm a new person now. It also helped me get used to my new family. Mum and I were close, definitely closer than Dad and I. I was also close to Dora, my older sister, but he always tried to baby me despite my age. The rest of these years were spent in Hogwarts, learning magic. Hearing something, I turn towards the corridor I just passed, and stop, seeing the annoying sight of my cousin and a small kid being held by his two sycophants. Malfoy, I shout into the corridor, as I start walking in. Malfoy and his cronies startle, hearing the voice, and they look at me. Malfoy scowls, and asks, "What do you want, Tonks?" "That's my sister actually. I'm just Cepheus." I frown at him, and turn towards the kid they had held. I then blink, recognizing the face. I then pull L. Malfoy towards me by the collar of his robe, push him towards the opening of the corridor, and say, "Scram. I'm telling Flitwick about this incident, and you should expect a detention or 2. I then glance towards the 2 other bullies, Crabbe and Goyle, and say, "You 2 want an invitation or something? Get gung. You'll pay for this, Tonks. My father will hear about this," Malfoy says, as H.E. starts walking away after glaring at me. I scoff, and say, "Like I give a whiff about what your daddy says, Malfoy. Tell Aunt Sissy I said hi, won't you?" As he goes out of sight, I mumble, "Bloody wanker." And then look at the kid they were bullying, who was now sitting on the ground, glasses broken, and blood spilling from the lips. Frowning, I say, "You all right, Potter?" Harry James Potter, the son of James and Lily Potter, and someone whom I've only seen walking around the school, doing his yearly quests and all. If I remember the original books right, this year is supposed to be the Triwizard Tournament or something. Harry startles, not having paid attention, and then looks up at me. He wipes his eyes, and his bloody lips, and says, "Yeah. Nothing I'm not used to." I sigh, and sit down in front of him. Waving my wand, I cast the Reparo spell at his glasses, and say, "The point is, you didn't have to get used to it. Come on, while I can fix that split lip in a jiffy, it's better that Madame Pomfrey looks you over." "No, I'm fine," Harry hurriedly says, as he starts standing up. "Really, thank you for the glasses, but I'll be fine." I shrug, and say, "Suit yourself. But I will be reporting this incident to Professor Flitwick, just so you know. So both he and I will expect you to go to Pomfrey immediately. And if Flitwick knows, be sure that McGonagall will know too." Harry nods, gathers his bag from where it had fallen, and leaves the same way Draco went. Sighing, I get up and return to my patrolling. Perils of being a 6th-year prefect, I suppose. Ravenclaw House, if it wasn't already apparent. It was still half an hour until curfew, which means I can still cover my grounds and go to Flitwick to report this. "The champion of Hogwarts is Cepheus Tonks," Dumbledore says, and I smile wide, as the Ravenclaw table bursts into the loudest cheers. Getting pats on my back from my friends, and those around me, I wave my hand up, and jog towards Dumbledore. He hands me the chit with my name, that had just chosen me to be the champion of Hogwarts, and points me towards the antechamber. I don't remember much about the books at this point, only what is supposed to happen every year. But when Dumbledore had shown us the Goblet of Fire yesterday, and announced the Triwizard Tournament, I was sure that I was going to try to enter it. I was 17, have been for a few months now, and I had already informed Mum and Dad that I was going to enter. Dora, my sister, even sent me a howler, filled with encouraging words. Yeah, it was annoying, if endearing. And, oh, remember what's supposed to happen next. Exchanging a greeting with Crumb and Delacour, who is admittedly gorgeous, I wait for pandemonium to begin. When a terrified Harry enters, followed by the 2 ministry officials, Ludovic Bagman and Bartemius Crouch, and then followed by the 3 headmasters, who themselves were accompanied by Professor Snape, McGonagall, and Flitwick. I just softly chuckle and shake my head, seeing everyone argue over if Harry entered himself or not, or if Harry is allowed to participate along with me, without even asking him. But in the end, everyone is forced to agree that Harry will be forced to compete in the Triwizard Tournament. I believe you, I say, catching Harry sulking in the library one day. No one amongst the students had initially believed that Harry hadn't actually entered himself, and that he was once again being an attention whore, as Snape put it during the potions lessons one day. At least now, some people did believe him. I've only seen Neville and Hermione argue with other people over it, so at least those 2 believe him. Ron Weasley hadn't believed him. Harry looks up, a tired look on his face, and says, "Just go away. You're not the first person to try and seduce Harry Potter by saying they believe him. Okay, first of all, you're literally a child. Too young for me. Second of all, we're related," I say, with a grossed out look on my face. Even if I was attracted to men, it would have been men. And 14-year-old boys don't count. 14-year-old anything don't count. Even when I was 14 I didn't feel comfortable with it, and now that I'm 17, nope. We're related, Harry asks, his eyes showing the excitement that his face was trying to hide. Scoffing, I say, half this school is related to one another. Purebloods. They love to intermarry. Draco and my mothers are sisters. Your friend Weasley, his grandmother was the sister to Longbottom's grandmother, before she was blasted off the family. So yeah, while we are related, it isn't too close of a relation. How? Harry whispers. I shrug and say, your grandmother, Doria Black, was the sister to my mother's grandfather, Pollux Black. Another of their siblings is still alive too. Cassiopeia Black. But she's. Merlin knows where. Why wasn't I with any of you then? If I have so many relatives. Harry asks, a bit furious. I look at him, and ask, do I look like a government official? I just know we're related because my mother likes to tell stories about her family history. And I remember your father and his friend Black visiting us when I was a toddler. Black. We're Sirius. Black and your mother related. Is Sirius Black related to me? Harry asks rapidly, barely correcting himself before he could reveal the fact that he knows Sirius on a first-name basis. I nod, and say, Sirius and my mum are cousins. His mother and my mum's dad were siblings. Funnily enough, his dad and his mum were cousins too. As I said, pureblood families are all interrelated. They had something in common too, they were both banished from the family for siding against the Dark Wanker. Seeing Harry begin to ask a few more questions, I raise my hand to stop it, and say, look. I did not come here to feed your thirst for knowledge about your family. I suggest either looking for books in the library, since it is a library, or you can directly send a letter to my mum. She knew your parents. She must have the answers to all your questions. As for why I did come here, the tournament is a dangerous one. People have died in them, by the dozens in the last one. So, I suggest learning some spells, practicing them, and getting hella good at dodging. I am aiming to win this tournament, but not at the expense of someone else dying. Capiche? Harry nods, a bit disheartened at first, but then smiles later. I then say, well, good luck in your quest, young Potter. I need to go and research the tournament, if you don't mind. So, Toodles, if I remember correctly, the one who actually was selected as the champion in the books, Cedric Diggory, had died during the last task. I bloody hope it doesn't happen to me. Now, if only I remember who had managed to put the kid's name in the goblet. Really should have focused on remembering the culprit too, but what can I do? It has been 19 years since I last read the books. A man wakes up in a desolate world, with just a dark sky above him, showing a white moon. The sun this planet belongs to is too far away to give good light, but the moon's acts as a reflective surface and grants it enough light, making it an eternal full moon night. He starts walking, to at least find a shelter and some food and water. But after hours of walking, he finds nothing. After a few days of staying hungry, with nothing to eat, and just sleeping whenever he felt like it, he falls down on the ground, too weak to go further. When he wakes, he somehow finds his strength returned, and continues walking. This time, he finds that he doesn't feel hungry at all. Despite a few days of walking without food, he keeps walking, and after a month or two of no food or water at all, he sees a palace in the distance, made of dark black stone. It looked similar to something he had seen before, but he can't remember what. Despite not being hungry, or thirsty, he wants to eat or drink something, his mind in need of it. So, he decides to check the palace out. He looks through the first few rooms, and finds nothing important. Just empty rooms everywhere. While going towards what he guesses is the throne room of the palace, he keeps checking the rooms, and finds them all empty. But in some, he finds bones of animals long since dead. When he reaches the throne room, expecting it to be empty, he is very surprised to find it occupied by one person, a woman with dark hair, green eyes, and black armor with green accents. She welcomes him, and calls him fresh meat. Before the man can even say anything, she throws something at him, and the man sees the sword for what it is. Just moments before it stabs in his head, he wakes up again, around 30 minutes away from the palace, and wonders if it was just a dream. He sits down to think about it. Just staring at the palace from afar, and finally realizes what the palace reminded him of. Asgard, from the movie series Thor. And the woman that stabbed him reminds him of Hela, from the last Thor movie. He wonders if he's still dreaming, and gets up, once again walking inside. This time, when Hela throws her sword at his head, the man reacts in time and ducks, but another sword cuts through his head, killing him once again. He wakes up, and examines his head and neck, finding no mark. He stays outside for a few days, just thinking over what this means. He's in some sort of dark Asgard, without the ocean surrounding it. And without the Bifrost, and even without the civilian houses, with just Hela for company. He realizes obviously that he's in Marvel, but doesn't know which. Comics, or movies. To check for a healing factor, just in case he was born with it, the man cuts his palm using a stone he finds on the ground, and the wound heals before his eyes, with a green smoke exiting out of it. The green smoke reminds him of the smoke he had seen being emitted by the ground of the planet he's on, which makes him realize that he doesn't have Wolverine's healing factor. He just has a connection to this planet, and it is helping him survive against Hela for a reason he knows not. Now confident of his guaranteed survival, the man once more approaches the palace, and keeps dodging Hela's swear strikes. Taking it as training. Dying doesn't hurt him, but getting stabbed does. So he tries not to die, while trying to talk to Hela. She just calls him a product of her madness, saying that she's finally gone fully crazy over the years she has spent alone. But as long as she has someone to kill, even if it is a hallucination, she will kill them. The man keeps dying by Hela's hands, and keeps getting revived outside the palace, like a game with the place being a checkpoint. But with every death, he finds himself just a bit stronger, just a bit faster. For a century, the two keep fighting, as the man keeps dying and awakening, enjoying the game with the opinion that if he is to live here for eternity, he will at least do his best to not be bored. The planet keeps reviving him, keeps feeding him her energy. And one day, after hundreds of thousands of deaths at Hela's hands, the man manages to actually feel the magic within him, and calls it to his hands. It forms into a black sword that he uses to cut into Hela's shoulder. He goes forward to kill Hela, but finds that she's not defending her elf, and is just looking at her wound with shock, fear, and relief. She looks at him with tears in her eyes, and asks him if he's real. The man says of course he is. She just never gave him the chance of talking. Hela says she always believed him to be a hallucination that her loneliness conjured for her, and so tried to kill him again and again. And when his body disappeared in a flash of green light whenever he died, that just made the point all the more likely. The man says that he's not a hallucination. He just found himself here. He didn't know how long ago, and kept on dying and getting resurrected 30 minutes out. He asks her if she still wants to kill him, and Hela just swings her sword after saying no to make him let down his guard, killing him. The man is once again revived outside, and angry, he conjures two swords and stomps towards the palace. He finds Hela sitting on her throne, with a smirk on her face. She says she wanted to test if he was actually telling the truth about not staying dead. The man becomes annoyed, and says that she really has become crazy. He asks her if she has anything to eat or drink, to which she says that the planet is as desolate as they come. And while there were some animals here, she has managed to kill and eat all of them in the 1,000 years that she has been here. She asks him if he knows who she is, and he says she's Hela, goddess of death, queen of Helheim and daughter of Odin. Hela asks him to kneel then, if he knows she's the queen here. The man, not even a little bit afraid of her after dying so many times, says that what's the point? She can't kill him permanently anyway. She says she could torture him for decades without killing him. But he says that if she does that, she will still be lonely once again. And he says that he could kill himself anyway, by just conjuring the dark swords the planet's energy allowed him to conjure. Hela finally sees the swords in his hands, and asks him how he did it. She had gotten distracted by her wound the last time, so she didn't realize that he had a sword in his hand. The man says that the planet wants him alive for some reason, and keeps feeding him its magic. After the decades that they fought, and Hela killed him millions of times, that the IC must have become enough for him to conjure the sword. Hela once again attacks him, saying that he's stealing her magic, as she's the queen of the planet, and the man defends himself, fighting her with amazing skill. These decades of dodging, and fighting, and dying had given him the time to learn fighting through practice, and even made him understand the art of fighting. He uses his swords to fight Hela, but still dies after a few minutes of fighting. Over the next centuries, Hela and the man keep meeting, keep fighting, and Hela begins mellowing out, giving him a few tips here and there when fighting him. She still kills him every day, but the man keeps getting better and better, as his body gets stronger and stronger with the magic being fed to it. One day, after another of his death, he just asks if they have to do it. He's tired, mentally, of fighting for no reason. Hela, surprisingly, accepts, and says that she wanted to talk to him anyway, ask him about how he came here. The next years, they spend time getting to know each other, getting closer, while Hela still tries to get him to kneel, just for her own pride's sake. The man ignores that, and keeps training, in using the planet's green-tinted magic. It allows him to conjure anything he wants, which comes easier to him. Other than conjuring weapons, shields, and even clothes made out of the same material, he can also use it for telekinesis, which comes out in Scarlet Witch-like magic, only green, and energy blasts. Other than that, he cannot do anything, and even that he can do very rarely. Hela, who has been here for a longer time than him, can conjure weapons, clothes, and also create portals to anywhere on the planet. She cannot use the magic for telekinesis, except for short bursts of pure magic that send everything flying away from her. She also heals from all her wounds within moments, where the MC needs a few seconds at least. The metal he can conjure, he finds, is something dark black, like obsidian, but a lot stronger. It can penetrate almost anything if thrown hard enough, but it is also brittle if it is hit on the sides hard enough. However, a concentrated conjuration can make the swords tougher. Hela can conjure weapons instantaneously, and even throw them within moments. The next years, they spend just talking and training, with Hela killing the man every once in a while. She was doing it because she had seen that the man gets stronger every time he dies, and comes back. The man asks her not to do it, because he might not come back someday, and might even die. Hela ignores it, saying that he's immortal. What does he know? During one fight, the man finally manages to defeat Hela, and holds his sword at her neck, a smirk on his lips while both are breathing hard because of the 2-day-long fight. The man refuses to kill her, both because he has begun to like her, and because he doesn't want to be lonely. Fighting with Hela is all that he has done these years, these centuries, and he doesn't want that to stop. He doesn't want to lose Hela while banking on the chance that the planet will revive her too. Hela kisses him, and the man kisses back, the fight being exciting enough for them to act on their feelings. Hela then kills him by stabbing him in his back, through his heart. The next time they fight, Hela purposefully dies at his hand, devastating him. He begs the planet to revive her, despite knowing that she's not a good person, because he does not want to be lonely. When his eyes are closed, while he's praying while sending his magic into the ground, to the planet, someone taps him on his shoulders. He spins around, finds that Hela is back, and sees that her corpse from before has disappeared. He immediately kisses her, and tells her not to scare him again. Hela happily returns the kiss, but says that she's the queen of the planet, she will not die here. And even if she dies, she will always return here. She then asks him to kneel once again, only this time with an aroused voice. And the man just laughs, realizing what she's asking him to do. He instead trips her, dropping her on the ground, and locking her arms above her head. He says that he will do no such thing, but he will fulfill what she wants to happen. They have sex for the first time that day, and the man realizes that he might come to enjoy this planet after all. Niflheim, a planet with a tiny sun in the sky, 2 moons, yellow and red, and a blue-green sky thanks to the refraction from the white dwarf star it revolves around. A day consists of 25 hours, but it is almost always evening time. The moons revolve around Niflheim, east to west. But the red moon takes 9 hours to go from moonrise to moonset, and the yellow moon takes 17 hours. The yellow moon is further away from Niflheim than the red moon, which is seen when the 2 moons pass one another, causing an eclipse. Yellow moon, red moon, Niflheim. The sun is just a blue dot in the sky, larger than normal, but still not enough to give too much daylight. The only light provided is from the reflection from the moons and from the other stars. So, 25-hour nights. The red moon, however, makes winds blow out all over the planet when it is out. Thanks to its gravity affecting Niflheim, the winds are fast enough to send animals, and even people, flying if they're not too heavy. So, it is better to stay in shelters when the red moon is out. By itself, making everyone MC and Hela name that time the night time. Land it is a cold, almost desolate planet. The soil is black in color, rich in calcium, carbon, potassium, but poor in nitrogen. The soil is formed because of volcanic eruptions and the wear and tear of magma rocks. It is fertile, and has a lot of water holding capacity. The land is clay-like, and can be used to make utensils and even houses. The stones are like Earth's stones, made of minerals. There's also a lot of microorganisms in the land, and a lot of humus that make growing plants easy, as long as they're suitable for the weather. Plant life is very rare on Niflheim, and most of the plants are those already adapted to the lack of sun, and the cold atmosphere. The leaves are dark blue, and the wood is dark brown. Almost black. There are fruits, vegetables, roots, and even berries similar to what can be found on Earth, but different. A coconut-like tree is also there, which forms the coconuts on branches instead of just the trunk. Animals. Niflheim is filled with wolves, bears, eagles, tigers, lions, and a lot of wild animals. There are very few herbivores remaining, since plant life is scarce. But they can be found either in the few remaining forests or underwater. Most of the animals are all predators, with a large black wolf being the apex predator. The wolf is 10 feet tall, and there is just one large pack of it living in the largest forest of Niflheim. The wolves are descendants of Fenrir, Hela's wolf. Aquatic life. Fishes, crabs, aquatic plants, a lot of them are available. Water. The water is available in lakes, rivers, ponds, and even craters, but it is very cold. Only the underground water is relatively drinkable, because the rest causes brain freeze. The water has a green shine to it, because of the green skies, but it is not actually green. The rivers all lead to a single point on Niflheim, where a giant lake resides. The lake is where all of the water to Niflheim is provided. From it is the size of an ocean. The lake contains a number of snakes, from those small enough to fit on the palm, as well as big enough to swallow any manhole. And there is a single dragon that is forever asleep inside the water, but no one dares to approach it because waking it means being eaten by it. Thanks to the presence of the dragon, the water is not as cold as the rest of the planet. There are 2 moons, one a normal off-white color and smaller than the moon from Earth, and the other a red moon that's twice as wide as the Earth's moon. The star The planet revolves around as much distance as between Saturn and Earth, and so, it is only visible as a blue star that is bigger than normal. The Sun is a white dwarf. The atmosphere of Helheim is similar to Earth's, only a lot colder, and more humid. The cold is because of the further distance of the Sun from the planet. Whenever fire is started on Niflheim, it comes out green because of the trace amounts of barium in the wood and air. The green fire is just as hot as the normal fire, and it can be used to cook food. The summary was written first, after which when I had begun writing for the story. I wrote out the world building part, so you might see some differences. You can change whatever you want in the story, if you do adopt this. The idea came from 2 things: 1. People wondering if Mason Hela will happen in my story. And 2nd, from Fantastic Four, the one in which Dr. Doom is sent to another planet, another dimension. The planet fed its energy to Doom, again and again, and made him its god or something. Same happens to this MC. I also wanted to write this story with Harry Potter as the MC, but some things felt odd when imagining Harry. The story's future. I was hoping to have the MC develop the portals too, that Hela can create, only since he isn't bound to Helheim by Odin, he can exit whenever he wants. He goes to Earth, and brings in food for himself and Hela. They even set up a farm, where they create food for themselves. And when Hela is eventually released from her prison, the two have a fight. Hela wants to conquer Asgard, MC knows she will fail, and the two separate. MC helps Thor and Loki defeat her, and after Loki summons Searcher, Hela still dies despite his pleas for her to flee and forget Asgard. After Infinity War Endgame, MC returns to Helheim and finds Hela waiting for him, who apologizes for not listening to his warnings, and the two reconcile. It was basically a love story between Hela and the MC, enemies to lovers lol. I really hope someone takes this. Harry James Potter could honestly say that he should have expected something like this would happen. His life had been one adventure after another, and so he ever should have expected to get a break. Falling into the vanishing cabinet and subsequently blacking out was something that's far from abnormal for him. It had barely been 2 days after Voldemort had finally died at his hands. And the war was over. Having felt the need to help rebuild the castle of Hogwarts as much as he can, Harry had stayed behind, strangely enough, alone. Ron had left together with his family to arrange everything for Fred's funeral, while Hermione had left for Australia to restore her parents' memories. Together with dozens of volunteers and teachers, Harry had helped repair more than half of the destroyed castle. And he was glad he had stayed. It provided him with some sort of peace and closure. Many people were lost, and it showed in the haunted feeling the castle now gave out. But still, Harry was enjoying this new routine he had found himself following, even if it had only been 2 days since they began this task. But there was one thing about these days that Harry absolutely loathed. Reporters. Within hours of Voldemort's death, almost everyone in the United Kingdom knew about it. And those that didn't know were only those still in hiding. Lee Jordan was trying to get in contact with them, although no one knew if they had a wireless with them or not. And like they always do, reporters from all around the nation had come to Hogwarts to get whatever news they could. The thing is, they rarely ever left him alone. The man who conquered, they called him, put his own achievement of killing Voldemort above the countless sacrifices the other people had given. Tonks and Remus had left a baby behind, Fred had left his twin, Lavender had scars on her face, Hermione had been tortured by Lestrange. And so on and so on. But the reporters didn't care. They only wanted to glorify Harry Potter and his miraculous survival against the killing curse. Again, Harry couldn't help but sigh, wondering if this was his life now. People would hate him for taking attention away from the sacrifice that other people went through. And he wouldn't even blame them, to be honest. Okay, he would blame them a little, because it's not like he asked for this. And now, once again, here he was, running, hiding from the reporters, who had the gall to follow him around Hogwarts and now inside Hogwarts, asking questions about Voldemort. How did you defeat him? What would you do now with all that power? Is what you said about the Elder Wand true? Why did you destroy the Elder Wand? And so on and on. Honestly, Harry didn't even bother listening to the questions anymore. Whenever things got a bit much for him, which happened at least once a few hours, Harry would just don his invisibility cloak and roam around the castle. There wasn't a curfew anymore, he wasn't a student either. So it wasn't like he was breaking any rules. And in times like these, when the reporters managed to sniff him out no matter where he went, as if they had a marauder's map of their own, Harry was especially thankful for his father's cloak. Or the cloak of invisibility, capital letters and all. On this particular hunting Harry session, Harry had decided to wait the Horde of reporters out by staying in the room of requirements. It was the one place that he knew no one would find him in. As Neville had proven, if the inhabitants of the room didn't want to be found, then the room would not allow anyone outside to find them. He had been just looking around the room of hidden things, which had miraculously survived the fiendfire spell cast by Crabbe. There were many scars left by the spell, inside the room. Burnt stuff, ash, and some melted stuff. He had even seen remnants of some broken jewelry, and even a half-sword from some time long past. There was even the bust which once housed the diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw, which thankfully he didn't find. Which meant it was destroyed completely, thereby reducing the chances of Voldemort's return to 0. Harry didn't know how the fiendfire had been snuffed out. Maybe the castle did it. Maybe the fire was destroyed as soon as the room was empty of anything living, he didn't know. While staring at the vanishing cabinet, which looked a bit roughed up by the fiendfire, Harry had been startled by something moving in the large stack behind him. Instinctively, he had taken his wand out, and turned to the sound, a Protega already forming to protect him. Instead of an attacker, However, it was the mountain of stuff itself that was moving. Or falling, to be more exact. He had barely enough time to widen his eyes when a large trunk slammed into his chest, the shield spell having lost its magic when he saw no danger, throwing him back into the vanishing cabinet he had just been studying. The vanishing cabinet. Usually, it takes whatever is placed inside to its twin whenever the door is closed and the cabinet's enchantments are activated. That was how Draco Malfoy had brought all those Death Eaters to Hogwarts, after all, leading to Dumbledore's death. But Harry never entered the cabinet, nor did the cabinet doors close. But the cabinet enchantments, still activated, damaged from the overuse a year ago, as well as the highly dark magic within the Fiendfire spell that had burnt it a little, the cabinet enchantments had gotten volatile. But the twin which was supposed to accept the cabinet's contents was not there anymore. It had been destroyed by Borgin himself, afraid of someone coming through from the other side to kill him. And so, while the cabinet had begun transferring the contents, there was nowhere to send it to. Nowhere to send Harry to. And so, the vanishing cabinet sent the contents to the one place where everything vanished goes. Somewhere far away from Earth, somewhere everything lost is found. Harry wakes when something pokes him in his stomach, and slowly opens his eyes. His head was hurting, and he could feel that there were multiple injuries on his body. Thankfully, however, he finds his glasses still on his eyes, and so he doesn't have any troubles with seeing when he finally opens his eyes. Nothing could have prepared him, however, for the sight in front of him. Harry was surrounded by people. He wants to say, they wore masks, and clothes different than what he was used to, in either the magical or the muggle world. And one of them was right in his face, staring at him, with a weird gun resting on his shoulders. Startling, Harry crawls backwards and brings out his wand, pointing it at the half a dozen people that were staring at him, content with just watching. For a few seconds, they keep staring before one of them puts his hands on his face, and takes off the mask he'd been wearing, showing a gray skin. It wasn't colored gray, Harry could tell, it just was gray. "Are you a fighter?" the man asks, making Harry frown. Fighter. Harry had had enough of fighting, he knew. So ever so slowly, he shakes his head no, while still keeping the wand pointed up. The gray man grins, and it does not reassure Harry at all, and says, "So, it is food. Food, food, they want to eat me." Harry asks himself, but the look on the only unmasked man's face told him that yup, he wasn't joking. As the men start walking forward with their weapons pointed at him, Harry makes a split-second decision and snaps his wand down with a yell of "Bombarda." With a boom, the ground underneath the cannibals shatters, throwing them all backwards. But Harry does not wait around to see the effects of his spell. Turning around, he starts running towards the trash, knowing that hiding is key right now. His instincts from the war he had been fighting warn him of something speeding towards him, and Harry ducks down, letting a blast of something that was definitely not magic fly over his head. Widening his eyes, Harry sends another spell flying backwards and turns to go behind a mountain. When the cannibals reach the mountain, they only find an empty dead end, Harry nowhere to be seen. "Where is he?" the leader yells, looking around in anger, sporting a few cuts on his open face. All the while, Harry watches them from underneath his invisibility cloak, not making a single movement in fear of letting his position be known. One of the other cannibals brings out a glass sheet outside, and with a few swipes, makes it glow with symbols and words that Harry doesn't recognize. The images on the glass sheet then float up, and Harry sees an illusion of the entire dumping ground that he had landed himself in, with multiple yellow dots in one spot. They can track people with that thing. Harry wonders, astonished at the magic he's seeing here. For a few seconds, the cannibals keep watching the glass sheet, and then the holder says, "Nowhere. How did he disappear so soon? Find him, you morons. If the Grand Master learns we let food escape, he will punish us harshly," the leader says, making Harry sigh in relief. Once again, he was glad for his father's cloak, which could apparently hide him from whatever magic they used to track people. But he still remains frozen in his place, seeing the cannibals fan out to search for him. A lot of questions pass through his mind. Where was he? Where did the cabinet take him? Because he had no doubt that this was the cabinet at work. What kind of people eat other people? Barely a minute later, however, a different sound from the constant booms of things falling down from a height reaches his ears. The sound of a plane. Harry still waits in patience when the cannibals brandish their weapons and point it at the plane which was away from his sights. He was, after all, hidden in a dead end between two trash mountains, with only one direction he could see in. It's ours, Scrapper, the leader says, too. The person that no doubt came from the plane that just landed. Harry hears the soft voice of a woman answer, "It's funny how you actually think you have a chance with me." Harry wonders who she is, if she's a nice person, or just another cannibal who wants to eat him too. Does this place only have cannibals? The cannibal in question laughs loudly, and says, "More food for us then, Scrapper. Get her." There is a sound of footsteps retreating away from Harry, as well as the sound of their weird guns charging up with a buzz, and then chaos. Harry stays frozen in his place, as the cannibals scream one after another, which die down in seconds, all of the cannibals dead. "It's okay. You can come out now," the woman calls out. Harry doesn't move for a second, doubtful of if the woman is trustworthy or not. But he knew he could not stay hidden here forever. Closing his eyes, Harry focuses on a place he had seen while running, another spot in the dumping ground, and twists around his feet, aiming to apparate there. Unfortunately, nothing happens save for him feeling a knot in his navel. Disheartened, Harry pockets his cloak of invisibility, and walks out, the wand still in his hands. The woman stares at him, the knot quite plain sitting innocently behind her as if she hadn't just used it to kill a dozen or so people in seconds. Seeing her prepare to throw something at him, Harry casts a shield, stopping a tiny circular disc that sticks to the shield, and digs into it using some legs that it grows. Widening his eyes, Harry looks at the woman, who grins, and throws another of those small discs. This time, his shield does nothing to stop the disc, and even before Harry could register it, he finds the disc slamming into his neck, and digging in. Wincing, Harry puts his hand on the disc, trying to pull it out, but stops when he sees the woman raise her hand, a device held in it. She says, "That stick is a weapon, is it? Good to know." And then, all Harry knows is pain, as he blacks out once again. The next time Harry opens his eyes, he finds himself bound to a chair with thick manacles, which was slowly moving through a machine pipe. He didn't even know how else he could word it. "Fear not, for you are found," a female voice says, startling him once again. As Harry rises to free himself to no avail, the voice continues. "You are home and there is no going back. No one leaves this place." But what is this place? "I don't give a shit as long as I get to leave," Harry thinks to himself, straining against the bindings. The answer is Sakar. The vault was a secure shield facility, completely off the books, based in Barrow, Alaska. The only ones to know about this facility, save for the people based there, were those with a clearance level 7 or up. That made at most 50 people, including those working at the base, who know about the vault, and what it contains. Not even Natasha Romanoff or Clint Barton, the two best agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and as of a few weeks ago, Avengers, know about it. Felix Park was very prideful of his level 7 access for this very reason. He may not have as good of an aim as Hawkeye, or the seductive skills of the Black Widow, but he had something they didn't. Knowledge. Knowledge of all the beautiful and terrible things S.H.I.E.L.D. has collected over the years. Alien artifacts, unknown metals of impossible atomic structures, cryogenically frozen Emil Blonsky, and a lot more. Hydra had chosen him for this task thanks to the very knowledge he was proud of. The knowledge of where everything was kept, and the schedules during which those things are disturbed. Hydra had recently gotten very interested in one of the items kept inside the vault, and it was natural. Just a month ago Earth had faced a war against an alien species, and came out on top only thanks to the intervention of 6 people. And it was only possible because the aliens couldn't just fly here, to Earth. They had to create a portal, and the limited size of THE portal is what made Earth's defense so easy. But Hydra was worried for their future. If one alien species attacks them, why can't the rest? They wouldn't even know when another such attack happens. And Thor might not always be here to defend them. And so, they had begun looking for other avenues. avenues like waking Emil Blonsky up, and inducting him into Hydra. His character assessment had concluded that as long as he was given a good fight to have, he would join them. But that abomination wasn't why Felix was here today. Stopping in front of a sliding electronic door, Felix looks around, trying to see if anyone's watching him, and then looks at the camera. The camera light blinks once, and the door slides open with a soft hiss. Grinning to himself, Felix walks in and stops in front of a vertically kept glass cage. The contents of the cage were a blue-skinned humanoid floating around in transparent liquid, an oxygen mask on his face. Half of the Kree's lower body was missing, with a black brace covering it. The Kree, an alien belonging to a species that had once tried invading Earth back in the 90s, was kept alive, but sedated. There was a single scientist working on a chemistry table, working with the Kree's blood. S.H.I.E.L.D. had already figured out a way to bring someone back to life using a serum derived from the Kree blood, but Felix had no idea if it had been successfully used or not. There were some psychological issues, last he knew. Felix keeps watching the cameras out of the corner of his eyes, and so he notices when all of them blink at once. Immediately, the doors to the lab open once more, and 3 black-clad agents enter the room, holding 2 identical silver suitcases each. Felix nods at them, even as the scientist looks at them with a frown but gets back to his own work, and watches as they approach a glass case at the end of the room. This was what they were here for. Inside the glass case, one could see a pair of gray metal striped hands belonging to an armor, sticking out of a stack of similar metal, while a striped metal head sat innocently upon it. These pieces of metal armor were recovered from the Battle of Puente Antiguo, and it was all that remained of the Asgardian automaton that they had dubbed the Destroyer, after Thor Odinson had destroyed it. After seeing the proof of what a simple weapon made by studying the arm of the Destroyer could do, Hydra was really interested to see if they can repair the actual armor. Repair the Destroyer, and get it to work for them as a wearable armor. Like Iron Man, there would be limitations, like how no earthen metal save for vibranium even compared to anything like the rock-like metal the Destroyer was made of. But his superiors had plans. He wasn't aware of them, but he knew there were plans. It would be a perfect weapon for them. Just like the Asset, where the Asset is an assassin, the Destroyer would be a battering ram, with the only possible opposition being Thor Odinson. But as his superiors had said, you don't need to know, Park. Just get it done. Felix approaches the case, with the lower Hydra agents giving him space to do so, and enters the 216 dig. It codes that he had memorized a long time ago. The black-clad agents get to work immediately, and start piling the pieces of the Destroyer into their suitcases, carefully. The metal was heavy, not heavy enough for it to be a problem for any of them, but heavy enough that a single piece dropping would give them away. As the stack within the case gets smaller and smaller, Felix brings out a cigarette lighter from his inner pocket, and presses it. At the same time that the flames light up on his lighter, the entire base shakes violently, rocked by an explosion. That came from the south, didn't it? From the abomination chamber. The scientist who had been watching them work with keen eyes asks. Felix just grins at the man, and says, "We needed a distraction, Dr. Williams. Don't you think the abomination works?" The plan was simple. Felix helps the team steal the pieces of the Destroyer armor, and then provides them with a distraction in the form of an explosion inside the abomination chamber, leading to a possible escape from the monster, allowing them to get away with their steal. The vault had been modified when Abomination was brought in, and it was simply assumed that they will be able to capture him once again even before he ever gets out. Unfortunately, no one could have correctly estimated how strong the Abomination could get when forcefully awakened like this, or where he could go before being cryogenically frozen once again. While they take a turn according to the planned exit strategy, a wall in front of them blows in, as a large yellowish-green fist exits out of it. The Abomination walks out of the hole he had created in the thick wall, and immediately gets bombarded by 6 freeze guns that were fixed on the ceiling above them. Abomination raises his hands to protect his face, and as the hands start getting covered in ice, runs towards the guns and destroys them by the swipe of his elbow bone, that was extending out of the elbow. Felix freezes, even as The agents behind him equip their assault rifles and start firing at the abomination. The abomination looks at them, barely bothered by the rain of bullets slamming into his large chest, and then, Gruar. His yell makes Felix afraid, even more than when he had seen the abomination appear in front of him, and at once, he turns around to start running. But even before he takes a single step, the abomination is on them, gripping Felix in one hand, and slams him into the wall. Felix Park's head is crushed, and he is dead even before he drops down on the crushed cases. One by one, the 7 agents that had come with him die too. All their bodies spread around the hallway. No one notices the suitcases glowing with a soft orange glow as the blood that had fallen down gets pulled towards it. The Hydra scientist named Dr. Williams unfortunately takes that moment to try escaping the base, and a single wrong turn leads him to the same hallway. Abomination looks at him with a blood-covered grin, and booms out, "You. I remember you. You took my blood." That he had. For Hydra, Williams had stolen Emil Blonsky's blood while he was already in cryogenic sleep. Williams didn't, however, know that Blonsky was aware of it at the time. Williams immediately pisses his pants, and starts running backwards, unfortunately falling after just his second step. Abomination takes a step forward, and steps on top of one of the suitcases. Unexpectedly, however, for him, the contents of the suitcases are not as fragile as the materials he was used to, and the pieces of metal dig into his bare foot. Arg! Abomination yells in pain, and immediately steps back. Looking down, he sees the suitcase crushed, but the metal pieces inside it now shone with a soft green and orange light. The remaining broken suitcases shudder, as the pieces start vibrating with a low frequency. Slowly, bit by bit, the pieces of the destroyer armor get pulled towards the one suitcase that Abomination had stepped on. The largest suitcase, which contained the head of the destroyer armor. The armor head, which had fallen sideways when Abomination had stepped on it, straightens up, and Abomination sees his own blood covering the broken flat top of the destroyer's head, as its eyes start glowing green. The destroyer. It was created with an unwinnable battle in mind, and so, it was enchanted by the dwarves, as well as the Asgardians who had commissioned it. The enchantment currently at work was its ability to repair itself using the blood of its enemies. It had not only taken in the blood of 8 soldiers that had died upon its remains, but also the blood of the Abomination, who had stepped on a sharp, broken edge accidentally. Abomination was fascinated. He had known his blood was special, after having been injected with the super soldier serum as well as the blood belonging to Bruce Banner, but he was seeing it happen for the first time in his life. What would this make? What even was inside that suitcase? He wondered. In front of his very intently watching eyes, the head of the destroyer floats up into the air, coming to rest right in front of his face, and slowly, the broken pieces that had scattered around start getting pulled towards the head. The pieces melt together into a metallic gray sludge, with only the head retaining its shape, until the last piece flies up and merges with the vague shape forming in front of it. And then, it starts taking shape. The metal starts flowing downwards, forming into a chest, legs, and arms, with small spikes adorning the limbs. Funnily enough, the broken flat top of the head was also fixed. The armor, once fully formed, stops glowing with the orange-green light, and remains idle. Abomination keeps watching it, not caring for the sound of soldiers rushing towards them at all. He was wondering what it was, how it dug into his skin when he stepped on it, how it didn't get crushed save for a single dent that's long since been repaired. Suddenly, the eyes of the automaton light back up with a green fire burning behind it, and a single punch lands on the Abomination's face, sending him flying back through 2 rooms, and back to the freezer he was kept in. The destroyer looks around, almost looking confused, and then disappears into a beam of multicolored light, taking the ceilings of all the rooms above it with him. The destroyer, an armor made by Brock, the then king of dwarves, and enchanted by Odin, the king of Asgard. During its creation, Odin had foreseen a battle with some beings that he couldn't see, foreseen himself fighting those beings by wearing the armor himself. And so, after the dwarves had handed the completed armor to him, Odin had enchanted it some more. But the armor wasn't designed to be worn. It was designed to be a channel for Odin Force, a personal weapon for the king of Asgard, wielder of Gungnir. And so, Odin had to make sure the armor was used to a presence not its own, so that when he eventually wore it, it didn't destroy him. And so, Odin Allfather plucked a single soul out of Yggdrasil's grasp, preventing it from moving on to its next adventure, and trapped it inside the armor. The soul remained dormant, unable to do anything but watch, as the armor was used as a guardian and weapon of Asgard. Until now, when Thor had destroyed the destroyer, the soul trapped within it went to sleep. While the connection it had with Asgard was destroyed with little to no chances of repair. It was a failsafe, to prevent others from harming Odin through it. But its enchantments remained. The soul remained, and Abomination's blood proved to have enough of a power boost to not only repair the armor once again, but also free the soul trapped within it, allowing it free reign of the armor. Appearing out of a beam of multicolored light, the armor looks at the desert around it, and lifts his hand up. Puente Antiguo, it recognizes the place, while observing the hand. I can move again, the armor tries to say, but fails. Due to not having a mouth to speak through. It wants to cry in relief, at being freed once again, but can't, due to having no true eyes, nor tear ducts. Clenching its fists, the destroyer looks up, and thinks to itself, I will have my vengeance, Odin. For all the pain you had me go through, I will bring it upon you twofold. That's my promise. And then, it disappears once again, to places unknown. What is this? Everything is so dark, so silent, so dead. Hello, can anyone hear me? What is happening? Why can't I say anything? Why can't I open my mouth? I can't move, I can't see, I can't smell, I can't hear, I can't breathe, I can't feel a thing. The only thing I can feel right now is myself, panicking. How long have I been here? Has it been just a few seconds? A few minutes? Days? Years? I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't remember anything. My mind. It's as if, am I dead? I want to breathe. I want to live. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Suddenly, I find myself falling down on the ground, not even remembering having stood up. I gasp out a breath, once more capable of breathing in, and finally find myself a bit relieved. Taking hungry breaths, I blink a few times, blinded by the light all around me, and take a moment to first get used to it. It wasn't bright, not really, but after having stayed in the dark for so long, even a candle would be too bright for me. The first thing I do after getting used to the light, still breathing hard, is place my hand on my heart, and smile with relief when I feel it beat steadily. Although it is a bit faster than was proper. I let out a loud breath and smile when I hear the sound. I wasn't dead. Maybe I was, before, but I am not dead now. But, where am I? I ask myself with a whisper, reassuring myself with the sound of the words spoken. The last thing I remember is, I don't know. What do I remember? Two images flash in front of my eyes. The first being two large, golden eyes staring at me from the dark. And the second, my room burning, and the smell of burnt flesh as it took me with it. I blink twice, and look around. As soon as I bring my head up, my heart skips a beat and I drop down on my ass, crawling backwards at seeing a snake poised to attack right in front of me. I stop, however, when the snake remains that way. Oh, thank fuck, I whisper, looking at the snake statue and not a real snake. It wasn't just one snake, however, there were almost a dozen snake statues, all made in a position of biting someone, lined up one after the other. They were kept in what looked like a small man-made pond. Standing up, I look around, and see that there was an identical set of snake statues on the other side of the platform I was standing on. Sitting in another body of water. Or maybe it was the same one, with the platform just situated on top of it. Wait a minute. This looks far too familiar to be a coincidence. My heartbeat starts getting faster once again as I turn around, and as soon as I look upon the giant statue of the man standing at the end of the platform, I hold my head, remembering everything. Not just everything, but even more. I remember this. I remember reading about this place in a book series made up of 7 books, with 8 movies made about it. I remember being fascinated with this place when I was a kid. Well, even when I was an adult, to be honest. The Chamber of Secrets. I'm inside the bloody Chamber of Secrets. But, I also remember looking for this place during my second year at Hogwarts, and finally finding it during my third. And, I remember entering it, just to see what kind of secrets it supposedly hides. I remember spending days in the Hogwarts library looking for clues as to the password to the secret room hidden inside Salazar Slytherin's statue's mouth, along with guessing hundreds of times for the correct password. And then, I remember the mouth opening, two golden glowing eyes glaring at me from the dark, and then nothing. I also remember my name, both from the books I remember reading, and from the life I've led till now. Slowly, bit by bit, the two sets of memories set down in my mind, and realization immediately strikes me. I used to be a normal guy, a simple shop owner, who used to play games, read fanfiction and waste time on Instagram reels almost every minute that he was awake. But now, my name is Tom Marvolo Riddle, and I am a wizard.